Hello. Check, check, check. Yeah, it's working now. Hello. I'm starting. Although the stars are missing, so I think they're gonna come in. I hope so. But I'm gonna start just to introduce myself. My name is Nadja Saxer. I'm a cultural manager, and I used to be a club promoter in the 90s. And this is a kind of jubileum for me. The jubileum was 25 years, but the pandemic became in between. So now it's 28 years. After New York meets Vienna, which was an event in 1995, where I invited seven club dancers from New York City, and I introduced them in Vienna at Volksgarten Disco. And it was quite legendary because no one else in Vienna knew about the dance scene in New York City at that time. We had a little breakdance community, the Breakers, but about this great underground freestyle dance scene, nobody knew in Vienna. And what I did, I researched also in Vienna for the underground, and I invited also the hip hop people, so it was a nice mixture. And I introduced Archie Burnett, Willie Ninja at that time, rest in peace, my dear Willie. And basically we introduced them in a lecture at the club, and they introduced themselves basically with Sally Sommer. She's a dance historian from New York City, and she is founder of the project Check Your Body at the Door. And she's really a key figure for those great New York City club dance people, because she met Archie Burnett first, and Archie brought her to the clubs. And at the clubs at that time in New York City, she saw all these great moves and underground styles. So it took her, by the end, 15 years to produce the film documentary Check Your Body at the Door, which is 1 hour. And now, 28 years later, I want to reintroduce club culture as a dance culture and dance music scene in Vienna. And that's why we are here. And it's for the community, but it's also for everyone who wants to share music, good dance music. And we will talk about all that. And what else can I tell you until our New York City people are coming in? I will also introduce, of course, today a very special scene and a special dance spirit from Paris, which is a beautiful mixture of different styles, which takes in a lot of dance music history in their styles. So that's from jazz, soul, funk, disco, house, hip hop. So this will be our. Oh, hello, Archie, my dear. Come right to the stage. Here he is, Mr. Archie Burnett, Mr. Brahms La Fortune. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Archie, I want you to sit here, and I want to also introduce you to Mr. Tim Lawrence. You come to my side. So Tim, you're here. Here's one microphone. I give it to you right now, for the moment. And I saw him. We're waiting for Mr. Set It Off Strafe from New York City, but he will come. We started already, so we are fine. Like now, yeah. Is it working? Can you test?
Am I working?
Yeah, you're working. You work like this, and you work the floor and the books. Yeah, right. You find your way downstairs, Strafe? Okay.
It's a party, right?
So now we start the lecture with let's get this party started. Strafe is here. Hello, Strafe. Welcome to Vienna. Very good to have you here. Yes, please take a seat. Yeah. Hello, Strafe. So we already started a little bit. I told our nice audience about the history, why this is happening here, because it refers to New York meets Vienna, an event here at Volksgarten Club. It happened where I introduced Archie Burnett and Mr. Brahms, Bravo La Fortune, the first time in Vienna. So that's how it is. 95. So that's 28 years ago. Okay, now we start, yeah. I would love to start with Tim Lawrence, who is also the first time in Vienna to introduce yourself as an author. And I think you did you do a lecture before here? I don't think so. Did you?
Almost.
Almost.
Did a session with Martin Beck, but that was
okay.
about Martin Beck's last night exhibition.
Yeah, okay. Excellent. Okay, so just click on it that you see. This is the cover of Tim's book, and I think your work as an author is beyond just writing a book and doing, a list of listing events or happenings. It is beyond that. It is a key book for American dance culture, dance music culture, and please, can you tell us more about why you started, why and when you started researching about Love Saves the Day and what the title means and what it refers to?
Yeah, well, thanks for the invitation. Hello, everybody. And I moved to New York because I had become sort of addicted to house music, and I moved there in 1994. And quite soon after moving there, a professor supervisor suggested I write a quick book about house music. And I started to do my research, and my research quite quickly took me to this guy called David Mancuso, who started parties in 1970. And I didn't want to go there, but I decided to interview David. And David started this party that soon came to be known as The Loft. It started on Valentine's Day, 1970. The name of that party came to be known as Love Saves the Day, thus the title of the book. And during this first interview with David, we sat down for 3 hours, and I could barely follow a single word he said. Not because of his articulation, although that wasn't great, but because he just was introducing me to a whole series of references of DJs, of parties, of the New York City record pool that I just didn't know about. And it soon became clear, it immediately became clear to me that there was a whole hidden history of underground, downtown, New York City party culture that hadn't been historicized. Part of me didn't want to go there as a writer because, I'd come to associate the 70s with disco, and at the time, disco was just seen to be very commercial, very cheesy music. And house music was, in a way, the radicalization of that culture. But meeting David, I, again, almost immediately understood that he was the radical. And yeah, in a sense, what started in downtown New York City in the very early 1970s very quickly reached a kind of, an apex of the culture in terms of expressivity. Both in terms of the way that DJing was introduced, the way that all-night partying was introduced, the diversity of the music that was being introduced, and the energy on those dance floors. So that became the book, really. The idea was, for a while, was to take the book right up to the 1990s and the rave scene in the UK in particular. But by the time I reached 1979, I had a 500-page book on my hands, and that was enough for most people, including my editor. So yeah, so that was the beginning. And so the title, Love Saves the Day, is the name that David gave to the Valentine's Day party that came to be known as the Loft. And Love Saves the Day, obviously, in a way, references Valentine's Day. But it's not about, let's say, some relatively narrow idea of heterosexual love, but it was more about universal love. David came out of counterculture. He was very active, in particular, in the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement, but also obviously supportive of gay liberation, etc. So there was the idea of universal love, and at the same time, Love Saves the Day was an acronym or a reference or a code for LSD, the psychedelic drug. And it was effectively an LSD party. And this was one of the many reasons it was a very good party.
Wow, yeah, that's. I think you answered the question quite well, quite vividly. I would like to bring in Archie, because you have also a special relationship. Because Archie, please tell me what you told me today at the airport. The story, yeah.
Well, the story goes is David called me up to introduce me to Tim. I know the voice, it's the morning voice, child. Baby, don't mind. Baby, no mind. I just woke up, child, so, you. Anyway. So David called me up and said, Archie, you got to talk to this guy, Tim. I said, okay, bet. Now, the Loft was like my home. I was there every Saturday for over 20 years. 1980. Oh, time? Oh, the party started at midnight and it closed Sunday 1 in the afternoon. So we did that. Then after that, we would go to the Greasy Spoon down the block, which was this place that, one of the Loft members, his name was Divine Ellison. He said, well, listen, can we set up some turntables right in the deli? And the guy said, sure. So we went from the party, walked down the block, maybe 4 stores, to the Greasy Spoon, that's what we called it. We partied there. Then after that, we would go to the beach, Washington Square Park, and sell the big 3, the 3-foot balloons. We would sell them for batteries for the boombox, and we would dance in the park. So this was the culture, and, David introduced me to Tim, and he wrote the book, and, I guess the rest is history.
Yeah. Thank you, Archie.
See, I just got my first job in Cinema 5 movie theaters, and that was 1980. So I'm actually late. My Loft is 99 Prince Street. Everybody tells me about Reed Street, Broadway, that Broadway was the one. I can't say it. 99 Prince, that's my Loft.
Yeah, Broadway. Can you describe how was it for you at that time at David Mancuso's, the room, the space? How was the feeling for you to be there and to move there?
Okay,
inside?
You got to remember,
and the
I was
audience,
kind of
also the guests,
I was a sheltered kid, so to speak.
The sheltered kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not the shelter. Sheltered.
Not the shelter club. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom's, she had me in lockdown, so I couldn't do nothing, So I guess when I got my first job in a movie theater, movies closed like around 1 o'clock because, the last showing. So there was a usher, never forget his name, Eric Jeter. He tells me, yo, Archie, man, there's this party. You want to go? I said, well, sure. Then he tells me, but the catch is it opens at midnight. I'm saying, well, why would you party for 2 hours? Because, most clubs close around 2. So why would I go pay money for 2 hours? He said, nah, you got to come. So, I'm thinking it's a party. I get dressed in a suit. Wrong mistake. I get dressed in a suit. We go down to 99 Prince Street after the job, and I'm looking at this line outside, and you have to understand, it was the 80s, right? So the gear that we used to wear, the nickname we call them huevo pants, which basically were parachute pants, You know, we were all kung fu aficionados. Yes, baby. We would wear those hats, you know, from, does anybody know Zatoichi? That was the inspiration. So we would walk around with the hats, the bamboo hats. We didn't know anything about dance wear, right? So we would go and buy the kung fu slippers. Well, Capizio's later on, yeah. But in the beginning, kung fu slippers and
Kung Fu slippers was $5.
Damn right.
Were a lot more expensive.
That's right. Cheaper way to go, baby. And for us, top line was, you know, Capizio's, but before that was wrestling shoes.
But that was the reference to martial arts, basically.
To martial
because I
arts.
remember Willie Ninja also, you know, he told me
Yeah.
that he was struck by kung fu movies, you know, at that time.
Saturday matinee.
Yeah.
You would watch the martial arts movies, but they were really smart because Run Shaw and them, when they figured out to import martial arts movies, it changed the whole dance scene. For the hood, it changed everything. You know, because kids don't have money. We don't have money to go and take ballet lessons or what was considered dance. You know, because back in those days, Bravo has a funny story. He's going to tell you that one. But back in those days, they did not think of social dance as a respected dance in institutions. Well, yeah, you're doing that thing? It's frivolous. There's no practice in that. But when you look at it, kids are in those clubs from midnight to 1, getting it in straight every week. And back in those days, in New York City, you can go to a club every day for free. So that's what we did, right? Monday could be Electric Circus. Wednesday could be Inferno, Ice Palace. You know, we had hundreds. I mean, it got so bad that I had to, you know, now that everything's online, I Googled each club, took a screenshot, and have it in my phone. Just because you live in your life. Nobody even collects a flyer. I didn't think about that. You know? As much mileage as we put in on the dance floor, we might as well build that thing. You know, but that's how it was. So.
Archie, so we are in the middle of your story also at the club. So I just want to show this picture. Can you see? Oh, you can see that's too. We have to put it like this.
The fellas.
Yeah, the fellows. Tell me, you know, today you would call a dance crews, you know, that are, but you were really actually performing as Breed of Motion. How did you get the name, inspired by the name, and how did the group, you know, how was it founded, you know, by who?
Well,
Breed of Motion.
I personally, at the Loft, I met this guy named Steven Enrique. So Steven and I became friends. He took me to his hood, and we spent a lot of time there. Then in the movie theater that I got the job, I met Javier.
Yeah.
Javier, that's the one on the that side. Yeah. Then when I met Bravo at a Brooklyn club, which was, well, it's an ozone layer, but before it was like Panorama, not Panorama, it's Plato's Promoter's Manor. And we already had the group before we met Bravo, but the group was just something that Steven said, yeah, you know, we dance and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, it's fun, this little thing. So we said, sure. But we got the name, huh? Well, actually, there were 13 to begin with. I'll say all 13. But here, that's Benjamin Harris, that's me, Javier Izquierdo, Willie Ninja, Tyrone Proctor. Then at one time we had Melvin Scurry, who is famous in Hustle. He's no longer here. We had Irene Herrera.
Can you explain Hustle?
Hustle is a partner dance in the Latin community that they say is an offshoot of Mambo, but the kids still do it today, you know. The kids today call it New Style Hustle, but...
Saturday Night Fever.
Well, yes.
I mean, one of the things that happened is the Loft kind of moved away from couples dancing. That was part of the revolution. And the movement became freeform. And it was when it became freeform that people then had a sense of the crowd and can communicate with a DJ. You can't communicate with a DJ if everyone's doing the hustle. because you're mainly focused on your partner and not injuring them primarily, and not getting hit by other couples. So there's no you know, this is one of the limitations of Saturday Night Fever, and it became one of the corruptions, if you like, of the dance floor culture. But you know, once you know, one of the things that drove the scene of the early 1970s was indeed the move to a freeform dancing, in which the crowd developed this kind of personality that could shape the course of a night. And it was that communication with the DJ that is really the beginning of contemporary DJ culture.
And it was pretty much, the early Romp was pretty much artists gathering, theater folks and folks who worked in the industry. So it was a creative gathering, and it was about the individuals being able to express themselves as opposed to how everyone else did. So it was a unique place in that it was filled with creatives, mostly in the early phases.
So Strafe, no, stay on. Strafe, can you tell us how you started and what your, you know, and your artistic relationship with Bravo? How did you get together?
Well,
and
getting to Bravo. That was in '84. I was setting it off in the club, Village Gate, under the Village Gate, and I'm performing. And I see this guy scooting all around the floor, and I'm up there, you know. And all I could do is watch this guy scoot all around the floor. And I'm like, yeah. Because I had some other dancers in my shows prior to that, some break dancers, and otherwise we're doing different venues. This guy was up and down. I said, yeah, I like that. I like the avant-garde. I like the freedom, you know. And when we're on stage, that's what we try to be about, because it's about the room getting loose and everyone else being free. And while you're watching this guy, you couldn't help but say, well, I can do something, you know. You try to do something too, because you know nobody's looking at you because they're looking at him, you know. So that's pretty much my Bravo story. But for me, I you know, with dance music, I started as a teen in my father's band, and we were playing everything from Satin Doll to Cold Sweat. We were playing the music of the top, well, the pop and R&B and soul music back in the 60s and early 70s. I started doing, well, service in the community for community events, cleanup day, and then around the holidays for the children's Christmas parties, and then it was for the elderly and drug rehab, Daytop Village, Phoenix House. So I was serving as a young student, and then on the side I had my teen band where we can do the other stuff. I mean, with my pops, we were doing, like I said, we were doing standards, and we were doing popular music, Light My Fire, whatever, you know. It was a very diverse program. And then with my buddies, we were doing Kool and the Gang, Bohannon, and whatever for the talent shows. And then after that, after I got out of high school, I joined a dance band, which was a Caribbean funk band. And that band was in '73, and we actually did Love Is the Message, you know, because it was a big band. We had brass and the whole nine. So my experience in that was, again, performing. Now, the apex of that band lasted maybe 2 years. The best story about that band was that we had the opportunity to open for James Brown downtown Brooklyn at the Albee Theater. But if you heard any stories about James Brown, well, I can tell you it's true. His thing was, if he didn't own the band, we couldn't play. So I'm from downtown Brooklyn, Farragut houses, Fort Greene. So we had the whole neighborhood was, what, y'all gonna be opening up for James Brown? Now, see, we were pretty bad. You know, we were doing all the popular stuff, Fence Walk, Man Drill, Kool and the Gang, Crown Heights Affair. We were doing all the hot Ohio players.
Wait. He said we were pretty bad. You have to understand.
I mean, good.
We're overseas. You watch what you say.
No,
I have to get on his case all the time.
You that.
Watch what you say,
Thank you for that.
Because everybody's gonna take it and go this way.
Thank you for that. No, we were hot, and we had a female vocalist, Miss Sponchelia Lewis. She was
Hold
great.
on. Don't say hot.
We were very, very good.
She was very good.
Thank you.
And
We're
she
in
could
another
kill a
country.
room.
Very good. He was in a very good band. He wasn't bad. He wasn't hot. Continue.
So we were getting ready to rock the place, and we wanted to open up, but James Brown wasn't having that. He already had experiences with all the other top groups that he had been working with. He said, no, if I don't own the band, you can't perform. So all my buddies and all the folks from the neighborhood now, I'm from downtown Brooklyn. So, of course, we got the gangs and stuff down there, and everybody, what happened, yo, what? So, they end up crashing the gates and letting everybody in. James Brown did his thing, though. We had to stand off to the side and watch him kill it. He was a bad man, but we felt, like this. So our manager at the time decided, okay, this is how I'm going to fix this. I'm going to book James Brown, and we're going to do a show at Brooklyn College. So, yeah, we posters out and everything. He couldn't spend money on radio promo because he had to pay James Brown so much money. But we ended up doing the show. James Brown never showed up. So pretty much after that, the band was disillusioned, and disco was starting to come in. And I was going to the scene, the parties, and I was following the mobile DJs, and I think the mobile DJs deserve a lot more credit than is given. How many folks here have heard of Grandmaster Flowers? Grandmaster Flowers. Anybody? But how many heard of Grandmaster Flash? Right. But see, if with no Grandmaster Flowers, there'd be no Grandmaster Flash. And that's what I'm here to really express. Flowers and the mobile DJs back then were bringing the sound systems to the street. Now, the other thing is, if the brothers that brought the music to the street didn't do that, would the garage needed to have been so huge? I mean, they brought disco to the street before folks knew what disco was, before the disco fire turned on and these clubs opened. But Grandmaster Flowers, I have to mention him, why he was so powerful is because the promoter that gave him the moniker Grandmaster was booking all of the hot acts at the time throughout the city. So you had like New Birth, whoever, Crown Heights, whoever those shows were, the after party, Grandmaster Flowers was the guy that was spinning. And you heard his name every week and on the radio. Only one radio station at the time, BLS, that everybody was listening to. So everybody, the streets were unified in that. There wasn't all this division that we have today where everybody wants to roll their own and mix their own tracks, But back then, Grandmaster Flowers was notorious for having more than one sound system, so you wouldn't know where he was going to be at a different time. Now, because promoters were trying to exploit his name, but Grandmaster Flowers was one of the cats that made me want to be a mobile DJ, take it to the street. Prior to that, I was thinking about being a radio DJ. So I had the choice. Once I got bitten by the bug, going to the clubs and listening to this music, and the other thing that the mobile DJs did, and going to the clubs back then, it opened me up to seek out more of the music from an artist, because I'm going to these clubs and they're playing the other tracks on the album. So most folks are like single bass, I'm going to buy the single I hear on the radio, But by going to see these cats in the clubs, they were playing more of the music from the artists. And I'm saying groups like Donald Byrd's Blackbirds, as an example. But it was a musician-based time. The music and everything that was happening at that period of time was new. The sound systems, we went from mono to FM stereo. We went from small sound systems to subwoofers, big designs, subwoofer designs that were inspired by the Yardie Boys in Jamaica, who were building their sound systems and creating it before Sir Vega decided to use the design. So a lot of the stuff that happened and was brought into the disco scene came from the cats that were creating it in the street. Now, Flowers, Maboya, Pete DJ Jones, Ron Plummer, those were the cats I was chasing. They were doing these multiple gigs. I remember one that was after Larry Graham and Graham Central Station performed at Radio City Music Hall. So right down the block was Jimmy's, 52nd Street. So they would come to the venue after the party, and they're partying with the crowd. So it was a different scene back then. And this is all before, the garage and, the loft was there. Now, see, once I got started, and I started hitting the street, doing the parks, playing in the parks for the community. That's how I got my wings and also established a reputation to start getting some dates. The difference between what the mobile DJs had to do back then was we had to deal with a variety of clientele crowds, different crowds. Whoever hired us, they had a specific, maybe they were different organizations, maybe they were of different cultures, you know, with the island folks and everybody having their programs. So the mobile DJs back then, we had to adapt to the clientele that was booking us. But I also wanted to share, though, about the beauty of that time was that again, going back to everything being new, synthesizers were new. You know, besides the sound systems being new, synthesizers and the, what happened was, once the sound systems were able to compete with the decibels that a live band can put out with their brass and otherwise, that's when the sound system became an attraction. So folks were now going not just to see the bands, but they were going to hear these sound systems because these cats were bringing it into these restaurants and these places that were not discos. Discos weren't even a thing yet. But these cats were bringing sound systems, and you were in awe, you know, with these stacks that these cats made with the tweeters, the mid-range, the woofers, the horns, and then, again, technology started catching up. Flowers was one of the cats who was like, was getting the first prototypes of a mixer because there was no need for mixers back then because the mobile DJ wasn't a thing. But now that the sound systems were being brought to the street and that folks can, why they started hiring DJs was because the band, you have to pay the band at least $1,200 to $1,500. But if you can get a DJ that doesn't take a break and he's got this massive sound system and he can keep folks partying, oh yeah, I had to adjust because I wasn't getting gigs as a musician at that time. So if I wanted to stay in the game, I had to do something else. But I wanted to stay in music. And I wanted to point out another brother, Ron Plummer. Ron Plummer was another one of the DJs I followed, but he ended up doing sound for the Tramps. So again, DJs, a lot of them were musicians, and the bands had PA systems, you know, for the vocalists, and those cats who owned the PA systems decided, well, we got to keep working, so I'm going to take that PA system to the street, and I'm going to play some records. So the whole evolution of this experience evolved from, you know, community and community entertainers continuing and wanting to bring the music to the street. Now, 12-inch records were a new thing. 12-inch records were created to expand the fidelity, to increase the fidelity on sound systems for the live experience. So there was a lot of newness that you couldn't help but be inspired by all of this technology and all of this new music that was coming out. Now dance music and disco was a fusion that was actually embodied by studio musicians, great musicians now, jazz musicians now. I mean, think about Mr. Magic, a jazz musician, Grover Washington Jr. You had to play that at your party, but these are jazz musicians making music that every DJ had to play. And so the diversity and the maturity in the music and the intellect in the music was very, very high. And the adaptation to making folks move and then the sound systems. And then you know, the musicians started to integrate into what was evolving in the dance scene. But to be short at this moment, I want to mention something that is very important that leads to where we are now. 1976 was America's 200-year anniversary. And everything that happened in the country prior to that, the politics, the anti-war movement, the peace and love movement, the Stonewall, all of these things that were the assassinations, all of that painful truth. In 1976, America said, we're not going to have that. We're going to have a party, y'all. And believe me, folks in the hood were partying to I Love America. That was the most bizarre thing for me to see. It was bizarre for me to see this, you know, I mean, Broadway, how they was bringing, I mean, really, and, you know, it was about quelling and about tamping down the awakening that the music was bringing, because the musical creators back then, they were integrating and fusing their messages to empower people to be more power to the people. But by 1976, and between 1976 and 78, that was the most robust period of dance music, and there was some great music. After that, it started to wane. Now, why hip-hop happened? Hip-hop happened because of all of that expression of hedonism, and let's just let go, materialism, selfishness, all of that was perpetuated in the music and from that design. And it was actually mandated from a lot of the record companies. A lot of the funk bands were being relegated to the side. I mean, you know, you have the great ones like P-Funk who just say, we're gonna endure whether you'll like it or not, you know, and then you had Kool and the Gang that was able to evolve and put out disco music. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I believe that when people and the artists are allowed to be in control, they will do what their heart tells them. They will do what the community needs, because you gotta face them, you gotta feed them, you gotta eat with them, you gotta feel with them. And you wanna bring something that matters while you're there to be in the moment, enjoying the moment with each other. But for me, and why I've been sort of underground, and I enjoy being out of the limelight because the light burns. And sometimes you have to compromise yourself to stay in it. And it's not fun. You know, it's not fun if you're trying to be true to what it means to you and what you and your life means when you're in the company of others. You know, how can we have it? And there was a lot of great music and a lot of great messages that if you go back to that catalog of music, you see that those songs are speaking the same things that we are experiencing now, because we went right back in the circle, because the powers that be, as the broadcasting industry has been taken under, you know, by larger corporations to control an agenda. We are living in a whole nother reality now that hopefully we can find a way back to the truth. Now, I want to say also that another reason why hip-hop has become so big is because hip-hop is juvenile in its, the creators and the embracing of it. Juvenile, it happened because during that period of disco when the parents and they were out there just doing what the industry was perpetuating, hedonism, materialism, and sometimes not taking care of the kids. Well, I will say this. During '76, there were programs going on. Everybody was placated. There was jobs. In '77, they pulled the rug out and New York was broke. They weren't even picking up the trash, you know? And so there was a lot of programming that the industry intentionally put upon the public. And it was great music, it really was. But the youngsters were looking at this, and then right after that, they cut all the music programs in the schools. I mean, so now we're not going to feed, you know, the progression of message and community. Again, the early 70s, the musicians, rock and otherwise, you had classic rock, progressive rock, you had the fusion jazz, all of this freedom that, like a dancer, was being expressed, you know, from the musicians. There was this homogeny of spirit, but also rebellion. But hip hop was the youth that was being denied and was actually becoming voiceless at a point, and that's where graffiti, breakdancing was an extreme expression to say, I'm here, y'all are gonna see me whether you want to see me or not. So I know y'all can elaborate on that a little bit more in terms of.
I'm not touching it, bro.
Okay.
Strafe, I would be really interested because you're both here together for the first time, you know, Bravo and you. You still performing together, and I would be interested also, Brahms, if you could tell, you know, how it is, you know, to perform, you know, Strafe, you're the composer of the very legendary, famous track, Set It Off. And we're gonna have you both live later in the evening, so you can get a touch of it later. But how does this work? You know, because you're a solo performer with this track, but you also have a band.
Well,
You know,
I come from
it.
the band culture, and again, it's about
Yeah.
surviving and adapting. I have to call out, folks ask me sometimes, well, how'd you come up with Set It Off? Why, you know, what made you think of writing that song? Well, to tell you the truth, I was shopping a deal for one of my bands, the second edition of my musicians band, and I'm going to these A&R men, and this is in '82. So the New York scene was fusion of punk, new wave, and a whole bunch of stuff, hip hop. Everything was happening. New York was very interesting, you know. But I go to this meet with Ray Pinky Velasquez up at Vanguard Records, and he listened to my material. You know, I had some eclectic stuff in there, but I had some stuff I knew that I felt could be radio friendly. And what he told me was that, look, as a new artist, as an unknown artist, we have no power at radio, because that was the whole payola thing there, where the major labels had it sold up at radio, so the independent labels couldn't get airplay. So he told me that if you write something for the streets, and if the streets play it, which is the DJs in the street, if they played it and then the community, you know, gathered and it took off in the streets, that radio will be forced to play it. Now, Set It Off was released in May of 1984. We're in the 40-year cycle now. I wrote it in '83 and produced it in '83. It was released in '84. So as we go into 2024, this is the 40-year cycle. So I went back to the drawing board. He said, write something for the streets. And at that time, my band was, you know, it's hard to keep an original band together, especially if you're not gigging. Folks got, you know, cats got to make money. So the technology allowed me to continue to create the affordable technology, like affordable synthesizers, drum machines, and 4-track recorders. So I was able to not wear out the musicians in the band, but, you know, just go to work putting this piece together. And I had been a DJ, so the whole thing is write something for the streets, write something for the DJs. Well, the party got to get started sometime, right? So I said, well, that was the concept. Let's get this party started. And I put all the hooks I could throw in that song. On the left, on the right. It was, I was just throwing everything in there. This is going to be for the DJs. And my thing was, if they didn't like the music, maybe they would use the acapellas, you know? So, you know, my thing was, I'm going to put everything in there so they can use this song. It was written to be a utilitarian piece. But, of course, my spirit was in it. The lyrics, the concept of the song was to speak to the dancer. If you're listening to the song and it's loud, but you can't speak with each other, I was hoping that the words would speak for you. From spark to flame, our love will grow into a fire. A little thinking seems to fill me with desire. Desire's burning, to you I'm turning. Don't turn away, live us this day. You want a party? The party's starting with you. Come on, you've got me wanting to be near you. Out on the dance floor, what do we chant for? Live us this day, come on out, we'll play. We'll share our secrets with bodies, words are spoken. Love talk is spreading where all the rules are broken. A little love is fun, but it won't get done if we all turn away. Give us this day to show our gratitude, to change our attitude. Come on, we're many, with all that we feel. The time is ideal to set it off, I suggest y'all. Set it off, I suggest y'all. Set it off. Come on, let's set it off. Set it off on the left, y'all. Set it off on the right, y'all. Set it off. Come on, let's set it off. Now, I got to tell this story because I know there's another story about Walter. Yeah, because see, here's the thing. There's the thing. Walter Gibbons. Walter Gibbons, who mixed the track. Now, folks say, I know there were stories out there that I was ungrateful for the record. He's a ingrate, blah, 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 blah. But the truth of the reality is that when the record was released and Walter did his version and released the record with his edits, it was not the arrangement that I had created that I was comfortable with performing. So he did a DJ edit. And here's another thing. Walter Gibbons was known for doing remixes. He was known for extending song versions, song arrangements. So if it was a 4-minute song, he'd do a 10-minute arrangement of it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Set It Off is 10 minutes long, the original arrangement. So he didn't know what he had his hands in. It was 10 minutes long. Now, you know, I didn't even know Walter Gibbons was going to have his hands on it because Walter Gibbons was retired at the time. And he had become a born-again evangelist. But I truly believe that it was those references to the Lord's Prayer that made him say, I'm coming out of retirement. And that's what he did. And that's what he got his hands on the song. And he did his version of it. And then the record company said, I got to perform his version. And you got to do this show at the Funhouse next week. What? Yeah, they didn't invite me to the loft whenever they took the record, because I gave the tracks, did it to them, and, they were telling me on the side, oh, yeah, we think it's coming off, But here's the truth about that label, too. When I presented the song to them, they hated it because I was submitting songs to them as a songwriter, and they were looking for songs for a female vocalist. So this one song I submitted to them. I had written 2 songs after Pinky Velasquez said I should write something for the street. So one song was called Raps and Lines. I wrote that for a female vocalist. And the other was Set It Off. Now, they fell in love with Raps and Lines, and they had a female artist that they just didn't like the way she sang it. But since I sang the demo, they said, well, why don't you sing the song? Well, I'll tell you the truth, I was shopping it to other labels because I'm hustling. I'm trying to get a record deal with, a major. And I was trying to, sell it as a songwriter. So they said, well, why don't you sing it? Well, I was reluctant, but I tried. And I said, look, why don't you consider this song that I wrote for myself? I think that this song is better for me because I was still trying to sell that other song. I had somebody interested on the side. Any case, so I played Set It Off for them, and they hated it. They hated it, but the way I convinced them that it was the song for them, it took them 2 weeks to get back to me, though, after I pitched it to them. But I told them, look, I wrote this song for the DJs. I wrote this song for the streets. And if the streets play it, radio will play it. Now, I just reiterated what I had learned in my previous experiences. But they had known that because they had already produced a record prior that they couldn't get played on the radio. Now, for that record, they had hired me. I had contracted their rhythm section, and I played guitar on the record for them. So we had developed a relationship. And at that point that, I pitched Set It Off to them, the other thing I believe I got them with was when I told them, look, DJs buy 2 copies of a record. I think that's what got them, Yeah, well, y'all should consider this, because they really loved that other song, Raps and Lines, and, it was more R&B, and it was, like I said, Set It Off was written for me to be able to go and, do some damage with. So 2 weeks later, after they thought about it, they said, okay, we're gonna go with it. They offered me to be a part of the company, would you, I had been a consultant to them. But at that point, it was like they offered me a partnership. And I didn't know these guys that well. I didn't know if I wanted to be partners. Plus, I wanted to do something independently so I can get attention, so I can go to a major, maybe, just grow as an artist. In any case, they offered me a 5-year exclusive contract with no money. I couldn't accept that. 5 years exclusively where I couldn't do anything with anybody. Yeah, crazy, these things that are being offered. So 18-month non-exclusive, that was it. No, we're not going with that. Well, I had to walk away. 5 years, can't do it. So I did they eventually came back 2 weeks later. Okay, we'll do it. 18 months non-exclusive. I gave up the publishing and they had the master. And the thing was that I decided, well, I wanted to get this record out there. I got the publishing and the masters back, by the way. But I wanted to get this record out there. I wanted to get out there as an artist. So that was my sacrifice. In the process of the record being completed, and after all of this, and they started to get some attention with it, then they started to change their tune. Now, one of the principals wanted to manage me. Come on, that's a conflict of interest. Management, you want to control the record money and my performance money, because they knew that I had to survive. Look, I didn't get paid to do the track. I spent money to do the track. I paid the folks that came into the studio because their budget was low. I had them track it at Billie Holiday Theater in Fulton Street in Brooklyn because it was a community studio, and that was on the rise. So after they got the record out and they started bringing it around, when I first heard it, here's the other thing. When I first heard Walter Gibbons' mix, I was disappointed. I will be honest, because he was an evangelist, and he believed that the bass was the instrument of the devil. So, that's right. So he had tweaked all the bottom out of this record, out of this mix. So first of all, I'm listening to this song, this is my song, and I got to share this, because see, I had taken some audio engineering courses too. I'm trying to do anything I can do to stay in the business. But when Walter, decided to come out of retirement and do the mix, it was at Systems 2 in Brooklyn. They invited me to the studio. I came to the studio. I'm listening to the first pass, and Walter asked me, "What do you think?" And I started giving my suggestions about how I arranged the tune, with the toms and the different 808s and different instruments to juxtapose against each other. And he got upset and he asked me to leave. So that's what happened. I had to leave the session if I was going to allow it to be done. I wasn't going to have a hissy fit. Look, I'm looking to get this record out here. Okay, I'll cooperate for the sake of, I want to see this thing through. So I left them with some suggestions. You got to get an acapella, this and that, so we can use it, so it could be used in various ways by DJs. And I left it, and let them do what they did. So by the time he came back to me, I had no idea what I was going to hear. But what it is that I felt I deserved to at least have the arrangement that I had arranged to be heard, to be mixed. So the only version that I had of that was a previous pre-mix that was done at Sigma Sound Studio. And that was the version that we had performed all of those years. I had to master from a cassette this arrangement that I was comfortable with to perform it. Now, see, the company believed that if I performed anything but the version that they were playing in the Funhouse and the record, if I performed anything, if I deviated from that, it would be conflicting with the sales. But I come from a band culture. When you hear the records and you go hear a band, you never hear it as the record. You hear a live sound, right? Well, the deal was they wanted me to perform in lip sync. That's what they wanted me to do, which means I had to get some dance moves. I'm a musician. Come on, I wasn't going to do the Funhouse and lip sync to the record. They wanted me to lip sync, and they wanted me to learn this new arrangement, and I was not comfortable with that. Plus, I was heading out to England. I was in Shannon's band at the time. Let the music play, and we were heading to England that weekend to do some shows out there. But they wanted me to do this promo show at the Funhouse. I said I wasn't going to lip sync. Give me a TV track at least. They said, "Well, we're broke. We can't afford to go back in." I said, "I'll pay for it. I'm working. I'll pay for the TV track. I'll do the promo show. But no, don't worry about it. We got it covered." Next thing you know, I'm hearing on the radio, "Strafe is at the Funhouse." I'm like, I called them up. I said, I told you I wasn't going to do the show. "Oh, don't worry about it. We got it covered." "What do you mean you got it covered?" "Oh, we got somebody else to do it." What? See, now a lot of that was happening back then also. These imposter groups coming out, and that Shannon was going through that too, where, they had other artists performing her record at the time. But now, now here's the thing. Now see, that's why, oh, bravo. What happened once we started ransacking, see, the deal was that I left town. I had to leave town. They did the show, and it was a male dancer with 3 ladies, and they're there as Strafe. I had sent, yeah, it was Bravo. He had a wig on, and he was, no, actually, One of the dancers was Barbara Tucker. She was one of the dancers in the group. She hadn't had anything out, but she was a dancer. So they
A
actually...
great vocalist, Barbara.
Right,
Tucker.
she is a
Yeah.
great vocalist. I don't think she was the one that they had trying to sing raps and lines, though, for some reason. Because whoever they had as the female vocalist, and I don't know who that was. But the deal was that they did perform the show that night. I had some of my buddies go out there with some flyers and like, if you think you're coming to see Strafe, it's not going to be Strafe performing tonight. Whatever I can do, some propaganda. Had guys out there, giving out flyers, and this is at the Fun House, let me tell you. And the bouncers, so people coming into the club with, what's this? Strafe's not going to be here tonight. What? Man, my boy, he was all dressed up. He told me the story. I wasn't there. He was a promoter. They chased him down the block with bottles and everything, and it was like it was a crazy scene. So the deal was that this group was out there, and folks were thinking that Strafe was a group. And so I had to come back and stake my claim. So that means, because whenever the bookers try to book the bands, they look on the label, they see the telephone number of the label, and that's how they're going to get the act. So for me, I had to start infiltrating dates. I had to, when we heard that there was a date and Strafe was performing somewhere, fellas, let's jump in the van. We had to throw our gear in the van. We end up showing up. Yeah, Strafe performing here tonight. I remember one time somebody told me, oh, Strafe's performing in Hempstead, Long Island. So we didn't know where. He didn't know where. So we jumped in the van. We're driving around Hempstead, Long Island, asking people in the street, where's Strafe performing at tonight? Where's Strafe at? Yeah. So we end up at this high school, and it was Hank Shockley and Chuck D. They were giving parties out, and that's, from Public Enemy. They were giving parties out in Hempstead, and they didn't, at the time, they hadn't done the Public Enemy thing. But so I go knock on the door. Bam, bam, bam. They end up answering. Yeah, what's up? They come back later. Yo, Strafe performing here tonight? Yeah, but come out. Yeah, no, Strafe performance here tonight? Yeah. Well, I'm here now. What do you mean? I'm here now. You said you got Strafe here? Yeah. What do you mean? I already booked it through. You want to know? And this is the truth. I had to have my first page of my contract. You want to know who Strafe is? I had to show him, and I had to show my ID. I had to tell him what. Yeah, so you're getting an imposter group, and I'm here to do the show. What do you want to do? Well, I didn't know all of this, but we already paid them half the money, and we were going to send them a limousine, but if you'll take the other half, you can do the show. So we hung around, and we did the show. But that's how it was for us, for all the clubs that we had to start, taking these dates. Now, one thing I did do was I sent out certified letters to all of the top clubs in the city and let them know that if you want to book Strafe, you got to call me. And lo and behold, I didn't know that one family owned pretty much all the top clubs in the city. So one day, this cat, Steve Giuliano, may he rest in peace. He calls me from his car phone. This is back in the 80s. He said, who's Steve Standard? Yeah, I'm Steve Standard. This is Steve Standard? Yeah, you the guy sending me all them letters to all my clubs? He owned all the top clubs, Copacabana, Bentley's, Red Parrot, Silver Shadow, all the clubs that you want to work at. His family owned them. So he says, where you at? I'm in Brooklyn. I'm coming to see you. Came to my house, we broke bread. He heard the story. He said, F them guys, you're gonna work in all my clubs. And if they mess with you, you come to me. And that was the deal. That's how we started taking all the gigs and how I started establishing my presence in the city. I remember the first date I did at Roxy. I jump on the front of the stage, and Richie Rich was the MC. But he's cursing the audience out. Can I use curse words here? Is everybody over age? What? No, but anyway, if you had a hip hop show, all right, motherfuckers, don't fuck with the bouncers or they'll fuck you up. So I'm like, okay.
I'm gonna play it loud now, that people, and then we.
When I hit the stage, the first time I hit the stage, the girls in the front of the stage said, that ain't Strafe, because they had seen the imposter group. Forget it. It was on from there. It was like, okay, We're rock, we're hip hop, we're punk, we're everything. And that was where the emotion and the passion and the free form of whatever I've become to this day started.
Yeah, I just want to, Strafe, I just wanted to, because we have a timing here, and
Yeah, you shouldn't invite me to start telling stories because I got a lot of them, y'all. I got a lot of them, but I'm thankful to still be here, and I'm thankful to still have the love in my heart for doing this. And I will say that once Bravo joined the show, you know, it was like this is complete. This is the energy and this is the spirit. Because y'all know Bravo, and you know his spirit. He's rebel and he's radical, and it's about that freedom. And then Archie,
freestyle.
Forget
It's
it.
the freestyle spirit. Thank you very much, Strafe, for
Thank you for
telling us
inviting
your
me to be
story.
here.
Thank you so much.
Hey, look, we inspire each other, and that's what it's about. When we're in the room, you know, how we can let
it's
go.
about a community
Yes.
also. We have a beautiful community here in Vienna too. We're gonna talk with them a bit later. And I would like to go to the next part of our beautiful conference. And this is our great French and also Barcelona people that I want to introduce to you. Okay, so we turn the seats, please. Thank you so much. So I want to introduce to you Jean-Claude Marignale from Paris, aka Mr. Dynamite, Hakim Hashush. If you take a seat, please, here. Marina Pravkina from Jazz Between Barcelona, Marie Houdin, Ma Funky Boo from Rennes. Hello. And we have, of course, DJ Psycut, Vince Roussarie. Leave it here. No problem. Okay. So these great dancers and music providers, they represent a scene in France and in Paris that is truly diverse. It is freestyle, it is improvisation, but it is also highly athletic. And they represent different dance styles. And I want to start with Mr. Dynamite, Jean-Claude. That's your second artist name, I think, Mr. Dynamite. So, Jean-Claude, tell us about Mr. Dynamite. What's he up to? What's he doing?
Hello, everybody. My name is Jean-Claude Marignale. So it's important that I tell you about the beginning of the story. I come from Guadeloupe. I come from island of Guadeloupe. It's a French colony. And I came in France in the 90s. And before I was playing soccer, because in Guadeloupe there is a lot of sportive, very famous in France. And in the end of beginning of the 90s, my mother tells us that we have to go in France because she has to work. We have to go to the city. And I was at school. I was very, very good at school. And she told me in 2 weeks, everybody have to live in France. Like this, I was 16. And I came in France. I was like lost. No friends. And I was living to my family, cousin and aunt. And I'm staying 1 month, 2 months, like crying because I would like to go back to Guadeloupe. And I meet with some people. I was playing in a soccer team. And one time my friend told me, you know, there is a place in Paris that we can share people like yours. They come from Guadeloupe also. And it was a dance club. And on Sunday I've been there and I say, wow. Because I find some people from Guadeloupe with the same culture, with the same problem. And it was like a church. And every Sunday we have to go back to this club. And I feel better. And it's how I meet with the dance, with people. And I remember what Archie say about Chinese clothes. We got the same. And I meet with people, and they were dancing in the club every Sunday. Every Sunday, it was like a drug. I have to be there. And I meet with the dance, and it was the beginning of the funky music. It was after disco. And there is like a huge of people, like 500 people dancing. And I was like watching. And one day there is already some dance older dancing. And once time in the club, the DJ say, "Be careful. If you are not a good dancer, don't come in the circle." And I was like watching the dancer, make it step, make it think like that. And I'm just learn like this. And I remember my friends just pushing me inside, just go. I say, no, it's not for me. And sometimes when you came for maybe 2 seconds, I just do like something I saw before, I do that. And I come back. And next week I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I come back. And next week maybe 1 minute. So I learn with this dance like this. And it was like freestyle dancing because there is African community, Caribbean, French people, with all community, and we mix. There is at this time there is no video. We don't know how to learn, so we just look. Somebody's dancing, and after we go back home, and we try to remember what he did, and we try to do the same, and we come back stronger and stronger. And during this party, there is like twice in the day 2 circles, and there is very famous dancer, and the DJ say, "Attention, this is the jazz rock time." And I say, "What jazz rock?" We already went to New York and to buy some vinyl music, and he brings some song like Grover Washington and Miles Davis, James. We don't know this song. It was the song with a syncope inside, a break, pum, pum. And the dancer makes some crazy legs. And I'm just learning like this. I just learn day and day and day and day. And I meet with the dance. And about the name of Mr. Dynamite, it's become a long time after. I was dancing also salsa. And I tried to make something crazy with my legs. And one of my dancers, "Oh, but you are crazy, Mr. Dynamite, El Fuego." And the name just come like this, and they call me Mr. Dynamite. Yeah.
Jean-Claude, can you explain to our audience, as they are not familiar with the term jazz rock dance, which music does it cover, and what is the style? You know, is it more? Is it footwork? Is it percussion? Percussive? You know, just a little bit.
The jazz rock is, I think that they call the music jazz fusion. But the DJ say when he pulls some Caribbean music, salsa, and when he pulls this turn, he calls this music. He say, "Be careful, it's the jazz rock time." And so we just call this dance the same name, and it's kind of music jazz with a lot of break, and we don't know how to make it, and because you have to dance. And sometimes there is a break of drums. So every time we listen to this music, I think that the dancing is coming with the music. The music is going with the beat. Boom, 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 boom. So we have to do something and just
very fast.
Yeah.
With the
most
rhythm.
of the time it's so fast. Yeah.
But I'm also interested in, because you also give lectures or classes for Afroca jazz. Can you explain that style?
Yeah.
What you do then?
I'm also teaching because I went to New York to learn jazz class and ballet, because I didn't want to stay in France, because when you make ballet you have to make this kind of pants very close, and I got legs like this, and I didn't want my friends to see me. And when I was in New York, I said that nobody can see me, so I take some ballet class quietly. And I'm learning jazz. And in my country, my traditional music is come from, we call it guoka, with the drums. with Goka. And I always learn jazz dance, and I have an idea that is already like 15 years ago. I say why I would like to go back to my roots, but I'm not. I can dance music, the traditional dance for my country, but not like 100%. So I try to make a fusion with this music, with the drums, and with the jazz dance, and I connect these three with an Afro. I did some also from dance from Senegal, Sabar. So I mix this fusion of little step of African dance, traditional dance from Guadeloupe, and the basic of jazz. And I connect all of this. And I did it with two percussion drummers at the same time. Yeah. Mm.
Jean-Claude, can we hear a music or something that you could demonstrate a little bit?
I don't have, but
No?
if you have someone, any jazz
We
rock
don't
song.
have anything here?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I just show you some basic step because jazz rock we just created in France, so it's a French dance, and so we try to create some move about like 20-25 names, and I will show you maybe 3 or 4. Okay.
Got a brand new beat to get down all night long. Some new punk, funk, disco, rock and roll. Ready? Help me, people. That's it all night long. To music, oh yeah. Grooving all night long. To music, oh yeah. Dancing all night long.
Merci, Jean-Claude, merci. It's better not talk about jazz rock, but do it. Like really, to get a feeling about it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
How old is it? You said it's basically new in France, right?
Yeah.
Like about how old?
The music.
Yeah,
The
like
style.
from year.
It's about 1976.
Really?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of dance music history fusioned in one style.
After the disco.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But it's also urban. So you mix your roots, your traditional musical roots, in the city, in the urban dance, and mix it with hip hop, house, with everything. Yeah. Okay. Great. So this leads me to our next. Is it? I think Marina. Do you wanna propose your? With your you wanted to talk about the Roof's experience because it's a very new project, but you can also tell us about jazz between in Barcelona, your platform and your what you do as a dancer and a DJ and a promoter.
Okay, I will start. But tonight we have so many history. I mean, my generation, we are not with the history now, and it's very interesting for me to reflect on this as well, because a lot of time I'm like thinking, okay, I'm now 36, and what's happening now with us, with me? Like, okay, we love this history and we listen it, and it's like amazing. I was like, but do we now create something, or what can I create something now if I can? Because a lot of times it seems that a lot of things already created in terms of music, movements, dance, well, in fact, in arts, and we just, like my generation, we already learned by the videos. So, but we, for example, my generation had lack of, let's say, clubbing, yeah, like to go and to learn from each other in the club. So, like, I will just maybe start a little bit with my story and my experience. This is what I can suggest you, because like, yeah, the history is only starting, maybe for me. Because I'm a Russian, I'm from one Russian city that's in the middle of Russia. And that time, as a child, everything that they can dance, and something like folklore Russian collectives that's doing some stuff, or classical ballet. And I'm as a dancer doing this stuff, and I understand that it's kind of boring, yeah. But so I need something more. In that moment in Russia, come in MTV. In 90s, and I see first Madonna is dancing, like, I don't know, Vogue. I see the Justin Timberlake. I see, I don't know, Eminem, and this was like first, let's say, American culture that I see, and it's like, wow, it looks much better than I see here. Like, I'm young, I'm 15 years old, and like, what's a Russian traditional dance? Like, I mean, it's this type of, you know. And of course, where you can get it in my city, nowhere. Like I could record the MTV video clips and try to dance something that was danced like Madonna special loved what she did. I don't remember else. Well, Justin Timberlake for me was like too difficult already to learn from the video. And in general. So, and then in some time I found that there is one club that plays some underground music, and I was like, okay, what I can meet there. So I just found this club. It's really underground, and I understand that there is like every night there is the nights dedicated to different type of music, like hip hop nights, and then a disco night, and there's like techno, electronic music. Now I was like, what is this? So I didn't know what is this for me. Like it was like MTV only existing, yeah. And then in that moment I'm meeting these cultures in the club. On that moment I don't know how to dance on this, how to react on this. So I just jump and pump and what I can do on the party, right? And as I reflect now, for me it was my first club in dancing. Not when I started to later learn house steps in the workshops, because it's the idea where I started to learn the first steps when the first house dancers came to Moscow to teach workshops, when Jesus Debout started and stuff. But my first experience was really, and it was a drum and bass party and jungle party, and this where I got like really crazy. This is where I was really feeling I'm in some ritual, I'm in some trance that I cannot go out from this, and I can just jump 3 hours, and I was in love of this. And of course, I'm starting to meet on the hip-hop parties the b-boys that is existing in the city, and I start to discover what's there behind of these cultures. So like this, I arrived to house dance culture and the battles. Again, in Russia, in that moment when I lived there, there is not too much club, so the culture goes to battles more oriented scene, and this also was a lack of communication, because the first is like, okay, but I need like music communicate with the DJs. It is like it started, and I like this. So it kind of was lack of this. And after, together with house dancing, we with my crew, Matryoshki and Jazz, we found some like videos in YouTube. This is how we was searching for the more dancing. We were searching more like, what is the base of house dance? What is moves inside, like, and we start like tap dancing, and there is like a Latin steps, and then we found some video collaborations of the dancers, and there was like a UK jazz dance style, and they was doing like just the percussion. It's a video with one percussionist musician, and the house dancer is dancing, the tap dance is dancer, UK jazz dance dancing, and like I was like, okay, oh, that is all interpretation of the same percussion in different techniques. I was like, what is UK jazz? We didn't know what is that. And in that moment, we started to research about the Brothers in Jazz based in London, I Dance Jazz, the crews that was dancing, they use UK jazz dance. What is UK jazz dance? I think they have the same roots, the same time of existence, the same story, the same music that played now Vince almost, yes, jazz fusion, no? Well, Vince can tell than this something. Yeah, and what was inspired me personally, it's improvisation. It's like the sound of the jazz is difficult. There is a solos of saxo, trumpet, drums, and the dance goes crazy on this. They do like intricate footwork, so fast, so technical, and it's just a beautiful thing. And like this, I think I arrived to the moment, like, okay, let's connect it with Jazz Between, because the UK jazz dancers was dancing with live musicians, the musicians who played jazz. Yeah, it was... with whom they was the jazz messengers, I think. I Dance Jazz was dancing. Jazz so messengers. It was like, okay, the connection that I would love to have is with music, with the live music, to feel how the musicians played, how he creating the chords, how he growing up and down, increasing. So I started to feel the live music, I don't know, for me, opened the whole improvisation of the body, like upper body part, arms, feet, footworks, everything, because I kind of was trying to be this instrument. Yes, trying, like if it's a saxo, I go on saxo, whatever I do, I go on it. And this is like make me free from everything, thinking what step I'm doing, or if I'm doing correct it or not. And that's why the Jazz Between idea was, as I was loving, okay, the clubbing, like a music, electronic music, the subwoofer, boom, boom, yes, all of this. At the same time, I'm loving jazz, and I love to improvise with the musicians. And in this moment, we was going to Japan, and I saw the Japanese parties when they started to mix the DJs playing, and the musicians and playing, and the dancers, all of the styles dancing together. So it's basically all type of dancers could be going down with all of this live music. Like this, I arrived to idea of Jazz Between, and to connect all dance techniques, let's say all dancers who could be just going down, but with the live music, because for me the live music was just like revealing the freedom of the improvisation and creativity, but also to have a DJ as well, like to have kind of a hybrid party between concert and the party and the performance. Because when I was inviting the dancers in Barcelona, so I invited tap dancer and the flamenco dancer, and I asked them to improvise together, to feel each other. And they don't need music, but I could ask the saxophone player to improvise on it, but like go through from the dancer itself. Yeah, like also I was like, why are we always dancing with the music? Why are musicians not playing me like when I'm moving? So for me it was like also this go forth and back from music to dance, dance to music. And that's why, like inspiration, when I saw all of these dancers going like go down together with all of these rhymes. There is a contemporary dance, and I invited some classical dancers as well from the academy. They was just doing spins there and stuff. And I was like, for me, this is a real inspiration that is kind of, I'm lucky, is lucky of my life, maybe in my adolescence when I was searching for something. And I kind of wanted to create this space where we can just all dance, be inspired of each other, like copy each other moves and pass it through, and as well communicate with musicians, because I'm really missing the communication with musicians in general. And in general, the community, well, in city where I'm living now in Barcelona as well, there is, you always play, dancing with the music, but when you start to dance with musicians, it's different. How they can stop, they can improvise, it's another sounding, you feel the instrument like directly. So this is the just between, how it's happened.
And Marina, so it's the same again, we have the theme diversity in the styles, and they refer to diverse music styles. Mm-hmm. And you are a young creative choreographer, but your tool really is the improvisation. So if you invite different music styles, you get something new out of it, and that's the beauty of improvisation, And we here in Vienna, there's also a community, a dance community. They do their jam sessions. For instance, Toytopia in the house? Those are young, gifted dancers that do jam sessions, like you do that with your dancers in Barcelona, and they coming from all styles. They do Vogue, they do whacking, they do in between. So you learn from the fathers and the mothers of a style, and if you're good, you get the in-between, and then it's your style, So you step in between, and then it gets your style. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think that for me also, when I was reflecting on this, the same. I understood that by mixing all of the dancery, by inspired of them, maybe this is what's happening now. It's just this hybrid of inspirations from each other, techniques, from the musicians, and maybe this is beginning of something new and of improvisational or something like fusion styles, more fusion than it was even before. So who knows? And also in the music terms, the jazz now, the musicians is doing jazz now, they mix in and hybrid in with the garage music, I don't know, with the jungle, with the hip hop, and they also hybrid in the music. So for me, it also was like, okay, for example, like UK jazz, the new musicians in the UK, they do this. I was like, okay, maybe it's the same direction we go in.
I also would like to ask Vincent, because Marina and Vincent, I met them basically together in London, or not. Vincent, I met you in London at a party of Perry Lewis. Perry Lewis he's one of the fathers of UK jazz fusion, and he has got his crew, company, however you want to call it, is called Jazzcotheque. And in the name, you have again a diverse spaces. You have jazz, improvisation, live jazz, but you have discotheque in it. So this is what the brothers and sisters there are doing. They went to the discos, to the clubs, and then they, like you, Jean-Claude, they progress their own style, juggling with it. So Vincent, I just wanted to introduce Vincent Roussarie, because he's really also a father. A father of the Paris pioneer scene. And when I met Vincent at Perry Lewis' party, he invited me to come to his festival in Paris, a dance festival, underground festival, Easter Sounds. It was, yeah, and I have never seen that before. Presenting the Parisian underground, the dancers, And you know, Vincent, you were playing, but you invite other DJs to your events, but it's really for the dancers, you know, they come there and they try out, and I just give you my phone and you tell us a little bit about the scene and where you come from, music-wise.
If I talk about myself, I come from hip-hop, I come from turntablism, but like a lot of people from hip-hop, I was looking at what's happened before for the sample. Then I was especially interested by the funk culture, the jazz dance culture. So I look at in UK because there were no jazz dance culture in Paris. In Paris, there were the jazz rock dancers. They were dancing on funk, jazz funk, but not on jazz dance. So only in UK, I have had this, and I was interested by the following culture, like broken beat. It's the same. Broken beat is about the following culture of jazz funk, like the house was for disco, if I don't tell two mistakes. And my festival, I have had a 3 years festival in Paris, was about the organic music for dancers. So it was boogie, funk, jazz dance, and a fusion, because we have had some b-boys, but without music for b-boys, only fusion, Latin jazz, Brazilian jazz, broken beat, and at the end, only just good feeling. It's not about the technique, it's just about come. Maybe you can dance some music you never have in Paris, because Paris is, I would say, kind of capital of electro music festival, rock music festival, but not organic music festival. So it was a real experience during 3 years before COVID. And now we are thinking about different things because the scene changed after COVID, but this is just a detail. And just one thing about what you said in UK, because this is where I met you. Perry Lewis always said, my fusion comes to boogie, from the boogie. Jazzcotheque is from the discotheque. In UK, there were two scenes, the Brother in Jazz and IDJ, they come from more classical jazz scene, and the Jazzcotheque come from the boogie, and it was a real connection with the French jazz rock dancer about the improvisation on hardcore, fusion, and boogie tracks. It's very hard to explain because in boogie in France is a name with a mistake. In UK, boogie is the jazz funk with the sound of the late 70s, early 80s, so more numeric, more some keyboards, the new keyboards, the synthesizer, they call it boogie. In France, they call it funk after 80s, during the 80s, and soul during the 70s, but this is the journalist's mistake. So if you look at the name in USA there is the funk, like James Brown, Sly Family Stone, or jazz funk like Herbie Hancock. So with the rhythm, focus on the first time, on the one. Then there is the boogie. It's a mix of the new sound after 75, so the new instrument, with the rhythm of the jazz funk, which is different than the jazz funk from the late 60s. And so the boogie in Paris was only the music from the 80s.
Can you give me a couple of titles so that I can...
I would say boogie in the Patrice Rushen, Mandrill, for example. But in Paris, it was boogie because people use the name without the culture. They say funk, it's 80s. Soul, it's 70s. For a lot of old school people, they say, James Brown, it's soul. No, I say, no, it's funk. They say, no, it's soul. I say, oh, okay. But it's a huge, I would say, debate. But for me, this culture, this music come from USA. So I use the American terms. But some dance come from UK or Paris. So it's very hard to explain in few minutes.
Okay, but
the last example is jazz rock dance is not a dance on the jazz rock music.
So what would be jazz rock music?
Jazz rock music is a fusion between jazz and rock, like Weather Report, Jaco Pastorius, for example. Very technical.
Yeah, Weather Report.
Weather Report with the real accent.
Weather Report.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the jazz rock dance was a street dance in the Parisian suburb and Parisian inside Paris, the Parisian ghetto, only from here. And they dance on the technical part of the funk and the jazz funk. At this time, it wasn't from binary rhythm, only freestyle. When it was technical, nothing come from the jazz dance class, only from the street. People put some, we say lino, I don't know on the floor, in the street, and only improvisation. And each town, each district had his own style.
I see.
It was a very
It's very important what you say, because when we create the dance company of jazz rock, and we make the first show, it was really difficult to connect together, because all the 8 dancers, we have 8 different styles, and so to put it together was very difficult, because everybody has their own style, so it was very difficult.
Without knowledge about where does it come from, only the style had the name of the town where they come. For example, this is the style from the north of Paris, or the style from the west of the suburb of Paris. That's it. And step by step, when it come back from, I would say, 15 years ago now, they try to write the name of the different steps.
Codification is hard.
There are,
Yeah.
I would say 15, maybe 10, 15 jazz rock dancers from the old school generation. They still dance in the clubs. They still teach. They have 2 companies, 2 big companies, 2 big crew with different companies, and they built this culture. But in the past, there were maybe 200, 300 in the suburb, maybe more. Wow. In the party where Jean-Claude were talking about, called Le Bataclan, the name of the first venue of this party. Then the party changed the venue, but kept the same name. It was each Sunday, 1,000 of people, 1,000 of people. Not all of them were jazz rock dancers, but a lot of young b-boys, early b-boys, and just people who come and dance on reggae music, on Caribbean music, I say. I wasn't there, but I have heard a lot about this.
Merci, Vincent. It leads me to, because you mentioned a lot funk, James Brown, you know, the roots of this, he's a giant, you know, James Brown in dance music, you know, dance-wise and as a musician and performer. So I would like to ask now, Hakim Hashush, how did you come to your style, you know, popping, locking? And can you talk a little bit and demonstrate a little bit for us, you know, about the philosophy of locking?
Okay, so how I met, the first dance that I met, because I'm not, how I say, I try to start good, like this, it's straight. My English is so, like this. Thank you very much. So I start by hazard see someone do a move that it was at that time a wave. So I saw it at the end of the party, and then I saw it like 10 seconds, but I have to move. And then I just saw this move, and my only focus was to understand what I saw and then try to make it. So I stayed with one move. It was a wave like of the body, you know, go up to down. So I worked 3 months on it, and then after 3 months, because I did the Kung Fu, so all your story about Kung Fu was, I just tried to move in the mirror just before the training, and one of the guy here said, "Oh, you do this." In France, we call it Smurf. This is a little bit strange for English people, American people. It was popping and waving, but we call it Smurf, like the Smurfs, you know, the enemy. But yeah, the journalists, because they saw us with the, you know, comment tu dis bonnet? With the hat and the gloves, and they say, "Oh, you look like a Smurf in France," so they call it Smurf. So someone said, "Oh, you Smurf?" So I said, I don't even know the name. He said, "Oh, there is a training room there with people who do it." And then I started in 1996. So it was late. When I hear all your story, guys, I feel so young. It's so cool. So, so I start this, and then I start with popping and waving. This is my first thing. And then it brings me to a place in France called Châtelet-Léal, was historical. For us, it's a place outside. It was a train station, and we were training outside. Just the door before outside, so it was covered, but in the wind, before the old people go from work. And so we start to dance there. And when I start to dance, some people bring me to the locking. They show me this dance, and I see the first video that everybody saw it in France. We call it Break Street 84, but it's Beat Street. In France, we like to broke everything, give a bad names. We are friends. We know better than you. So I saw this Break Street 84, Break Street 84, because it was the year 84. And then I saw Ozone, Shabadoo, do this move, but he was dressing like a little bit gay. And at that time, because I come from the suburb, it was not too good to wear like a gay or act like a gay. It was not a good idea at all. So I said, no, I don't want to do this kind of dance. But when I start to have a crew, I start to move, and the guys say, "Oh, when you do this, you are so good." It's something that they don't tell me when I do Smurf and popping. So I said, "Yes, really, I'm good." So I start to do locking, because I look better when I do locking. That's why I start popping, and how I bring myself to the locking. And now it's like 25 years, and I still do it almost the same thing that I do before. I just feel differently. For me, for just explain something about the French, it's today, my point of view, it's like dance is like a church. So if each one have one, there is no problem. We can share or your point of view about it. But at the end, it's you. Whatever technique you do, it's always you. When the people want to dance, they don't show a technique or whatever, because if we do the same technique and we dance, and the people prefer her or me, and we do the same routine perfectly at the 1 millimeter, the same, the people are going to prefer one or the other. No one going to say it's 50-50. It's not true. Wow. So this means something for me. It's what I discover. It's not about what you do. It's about what you are. And this is bring me about locking and all the technique and all the name that I hear and all the stuff that you have to do like this and like that. At that time today, I prefer to talk about dance than dance. Because when I talk, I can explain something that it's difficult to do it when you dance. Because you don't use word, and the most part of people use word for exchange. So for the funk, I want to say that I love funk. But I'm not in love with the music, and I'm not in love with the dance. I love the feeling that I have when I dance and when I hear music. That's why I don't do so much historical research and stuff like this. For me, the truth is, when I feel it, and it make me feel like in life, it's good.
I just want to add, I met Hakim in Düsseldorf the first time. He was giving a workshop there. It was Udo, DJ Crash, who introduced me in Düsseldorf to this scene. And I was really stunned by the selection during the workshop, the selection and the diversity of music that you chose, you know. So I heard old 70s soul, funk stuff, you know, I was intrigued, you know, it was almost like a selector. You used that music like a selector for the workshop to get people into the music, basically.
Exactly.
Not so much into the steps, you know, because in the end it's always the music that drives you to a kind of movement, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly this. No, I think that you're right. It's. I mean, what I mean, it's when I feel something on the music, it's what I try to give in the class. I try to give my feeling about this music, not my technique or the way that I think you have to move on the music. I feel the music good, so I put the music for see what people feel. And when the people don't feel the same than me, or I mean good enough for enjoy the class, I change just the music and I pick another one. And I grew up with the French old music variété, you know, like Michel Berger, for the people who know, Francis Cabrel, you know, all that old name, the people who are very bad look at that time, but the music was cool and poetic. And I like too hip-hop, and I like drill, and I like some music, not all. And I like all kind of music, bossa nova and everything. So I try to speak to myself what I want to share. I want to share that feeling that I have. And the only technique that, I'm mastering, I start to, it's locking. So it's just the tools for give something. Because like this, we have a connection and people love when they give a class to have something to eat. If you say you are free, but you pay 20 euro for the class, you do whatever you want and you sit and you watch them, they're gonna be not too good. So I say, okay, up your arm, do better, and they feel good. So like this, I can have a connection, you know, and it's just the way, try to share with people my love for moving.
So tomorrow you will have the chance. Hakim will give a workshop on locking, the locker in you, that's what you called it. And yeah. And now I want to, because we are running out of time, but we would take our time. I think it's such a beautiful, you know, space here, you know, so we just take our time. I want to introduce Marie Houdin. I invited her the first time for another club, mini club festival last year. It's called Female Moves Vienna. And I invited female DJs and dancers to this event. And this is why Marie has also already been to Vienna a few times. So Marie, you are such a diverse dancer, choreographer, researcher. So I feel like Marina is researching with her improvisation, you know, to go in another space of the dance, you know, maybe that you didn't know before, that there is this space. You are doing it also with your research in different cultures. So, you know, New Orleans funk, Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean music. You do research with dancers in Senegal, in Cuba. You invite them to Rennes, that's your base. And now I would like you to introduce to our audience about your project, The Unexpected Dance.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me again. It's really like an honor to be with you all, to meet you, and he was here, and to meet again friends that I know. So yeah, I'm very, very happy to meet you again also. So yes, The Unexpected Dance is my dance approach. So it's something very global, I can say that. So it's in the same time to create dance performances, and also to transmit the dance, and also to research about the dance. About the aspect of creation, I choreograph. I am choreographer since like 11 and 19, c'est ça? Non, 19. Je suis nulle en chiffres, c'est chaud. 19 years ago, and I create performances for all type of spaces, for the streets and the stage, and more and more I began to create performances really for the streets and for public spaces not dedicated to dance. When I say not dedicated, is typically because I'm French. Because in France, you don't see dance everywhere. You don't see dance in the street like naturally. We need like an organization or something, an authorization or something. And since I'm very little, like when I was like a child, 10 years ago, I'm like, I love Prince, and I grew up in the funk music and the rhythm and blues, and all my friends, they love like rock and roll and things like that, because I didn't grow up in Paris. I grew up in a small city, very small city. And it was like a mission, really a mission, to find some informations about those music that I love. The hip-hop music in France, the rap music, the French rap music was very jazzy, very funky at that time. So I was very, very in love with rap music, but not so much about the lyrics, but much more about the music inside of it. And so I began digging about this music. What is this music? And I met funk music and soul music, and it was like, okay, this is what I feel in my soul since I'm like a child. And even my mom, that she can't understand why it's like that, but it's like that. And so about my choreographic approach, I can say that I start by locking, just like Hakim. I'm a locker dancer, but through the locking, this is also funk, who is the most important thing for me. Funk is like my religion today, and if I can say that. And my temple is the club. But I feel like the club is inside of me everywhere I go. So the club is not a physical space for me. It's really like when I travel, is in me, is inside of me. So I can dance like hours and hours. Sometimes people just think that I'm crazy, because in small cities in France, even in middle cities like Rennes, where I live, there is no really club culture. And so people, when they go to discotheque, they don't dance today. They just look each other like this. This is very, very weird. Yeah. They don't dance. And since COVID, that's worse. That's terrific. And for me, there is this is a project, of the government and system and all of that. And as I'm a choreographer, for me to be choreographer is to be engaged, really. So about what Hakim was talking about and Hakim and also Vince, about the media and the journalist, to be French and to be choreographer and funk dancer and all of that, it's really a mission to deconstruction, about to find really the truth. Because in France, really, you got a lot of deformation of a lot of things. So anyway, since the beginning, I interest myself about what is locking, because I love that. I love locking, I love funk music, but locking and funk are not from France. So I began to search, and searching about the history of funk and dance, I began to interest myself to the people of funk and the music, the Afro-American people, the Latin American people of United States, because a culture is about the people. You can't love a culture if you don't love the people of this culture. That's really what I feel. So I was like, I was like in this small city at teenager in France, and I was thinking about that already. And I began to dig more and more about this research, and I began to interest myself about the history of the slave trade, and it just bring me back to my country. So I was okay. Maybe that's why hip hop and funk culture is so popular in France, because in France we can consummate and like hip hop culture without asking where it's from, and that's very complicated. That's a big problem, I think. So my mission as a choreographer is to really militate to put the dance in the social aspect of life in France, in the public spaces, and to invite the audience to dance through dance performances. So to question the borders between dancer and audience. And from that, because again, those dances are not from France, I began searching how I can travel to go to meet the people. And my research just drove me also to the African influence and the Caribbean influence into funk dances.
Marie, can I just cross you with a question? I'm very interested in the unexpected dance, that you can explain why the name and what happens. What is unexpected about the dance?
Unexpected is a word that just don't exist in French. So it's a word about the improvisation part of the dance, but also the comment on dit ça? En gros, c'est à la fois de jouer sur l'improvisation de la danse, mais aussi que c'est une danse qu'on peut pas prévoir et qui ne pouvait pas être prévue.
Debbie, please come here. Why are you sitting
But
here?
this is not.
Debbie D. Deborah Dorzile from Berlin, from Paris too.
Unexpected, c'est un mot qui veut dire à la fois improvisé, imprévu et improbable.
So what she means by unexpected, it's at the same time something that you can't plan, that you can see coming. Et c'est quoi le troisième?
Que tu peux pas imprévisible, imprévu.
C'est un peu pareil.
Et que tu ne peux pas prévoir.
Ouais, c'est pareil.
Ouais. C'est pas tout à fait pareil, mais bon, en tout cas,
in English,
what is
it's the same. In English,
yes, it's unexpected.
In French, we have three ways to explain. There's the way of not seeing things unexpected, but yeah.
And so, for me, the word unexpected, it's linked to a poetic south of a Caribbean poet named Edouard Glissant about the creolization concept. So I began digging this, and I built this huge project to travel between Senegal, Cuba, and New Orleans with a camera and microphone. And I went there alone to meet the people, to interview them, and to make some exchanges with them. And this choreographic and dance and research approach just lead me since 3 years now, to develop some international artistical exchanges. So
which dances, which countries do you exchange?
Senegal, Cuba, and in United States, New Orleans. And New Orleans is really like the start of my geographic
journey.
Yeah, because New Orleans is like the crossroad of all those influences who bring to funk. Jazz and funk just was created in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And so this is a very, very, very particular place. Yeah, I can speak about it during hours, so I won't do it.
Yeah, I will cut you off, don't worry.
There, in I never saw a place like that. In New Orleans, the dance is really like in the street night and day, and the music is in the street night and day. And this is the spirit of funk. They're gonna say to you there that funk is not just a music. You're funky or not. And this is a spirit, and this is like something because life is hard, so you got to be proud and you got to let the good time roll because you can do nothing about the hard part of the life. So that really much more than just a music. And I think so
tomorrow everyone will have the chance to get into it with Marie into New Orleans funk and footwork. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell a little bit about the
So
workshop?
I interest myself particularly in New Orleans about the masking Black Indian sculpture. And masking Black Indian sculpture are really the beginning of the funk because the meters...
I didn't understand. Masking?
Because, for example, the meters, the group, funk group.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
So the meters are with the Neville brothers. They are from the Black Indians community. And they just began to play the music of the Black Indians community with the instrument of the jazz music. And so it began to be funk music, yes? And this is very, very, very strong. So tomorrow we're gonna dance on this kind of music, and also about the music of the second line culture. Second line, the second line culture is from the tradition of the funerals in New Orleans. And each Sundays, the people in New Orleans, they just parade in the streets, and they pay homage to the people, to the dead people. And they dance with just amazing footworks, but totally unexpected footworks. There is no rules, there is no borders. This is but this is not like, this is also very brilliant. Yes, this is not nothing. This is full of heritage, deep and strong. And this is what we're gonna approach tomorrow.
So Marie, you will demonstrate. We will have a live act with you later, so we can get deep into your funk soul.
Sure.
We have to limit with the time. Thank you, Marie. I just want to
You're
introduce
welcome. Thank
Debbie
you.
D. Merci beaucoup. Debbie. I would just like briefly, because you are crossing so many cultures, in your person, Debbie D is born in Paris, and you've been growing up there, but now you have been living for a long time in Berlin. So, but yeah, the roots are in France. In Guadeloupe, yeah, like Jean-Claude, yeah, again. We have something together. Yeah, I would just like to ask you about, because you are invited as a teacher, for club dancing, and you are also a DJ, so you tell us a little bit about the workshop tomorrow, and what is Afro house freestyle, and what has it got to do with your roots?
All right, so I'm not going to start from the beginning for sure. I'm just going to concentrate on the answer for what's going to happen tomorrow. So I'm Debbie D, also my real name is Deborah. And like she said, born and raised in Paris, suburb of Paris exactly. I live in Berlin since like 16 years now. And my roots, also my parents are from Guadeloupe, which is the French Caribbean colony, same as Jean-Claude's family. And so my culture is French Caribbean. And actually, I grew up a lot with music and dance because my father was a really musicaholic, as a really music lover. So I really grew up with all kind of a variety of music styles like from funk, blues, jazz, rock, pop, reggae mostly, because I even went to Bob Marley concert. I was 4. But so yeah, I have a pretty large interest and taste and knowledge about music and a really large range. And I have over 26, 27 years dance career. So actually, I started in 1996 as a professional dancer and choreographer together. And like since 12 years ago, I started with DJing. So now I kind of like brought my musical passion in action by becoming a DJ. And since like now, you know, not 25, I'm not 25, I'm not 35 anymore, I'm not 45 anymore. So I'm kind of like, gotta leave the dance to the young people, to the stage to the young people. But I've been, choreographing and dancing many years behind singers and bands. So I'm coaching now, and within that dance career, I've been learning a lot of dance styles. And as a performing, you have to put different costumes and interpret different roles, different energy, different whatsoever characters. So really emerge in different direction when it comes to like dancing on stage. And that brought me to jazz and also actually within the career, I did a lot of commercial, but luckily I was doing my own choreography where based on my dance roots was hip hop. But before that, I have Zouk, like from the French islands, Zouk, Groka. He talked about the traditional dance that I've seen, that I know the essence of it, but it's not like I can practice it really professionally. I just can copy it. So all this influence that I have from my culture within the reggae. So at that time in France, again, like he said, the term used in France from the media, from the journalists were pretty young, same as breakdance. Breakdance is definitely not the right name for b-boying, but this is how we grew up. We grew up with the names given by the TV, by the radio. So back in the days, dancehall in France, we call it ragamuffin. Ouais? Okay. Ragamuffin. So raga, and so you probably heard reggaeton, but yeah, in France we call it ragamuffin, and I don't think it was like, I don't know if it was used in songs, in music, but I can't really say if actually it was the right term. So there was an example, and then I also danced a lot on New Jack Swing. So same, in France we call it New Jack for the hype hip hop, and I really started to dance with other people in Paris on hype. So this is really my base. Hype, hip hop, New Jack. And before that, of course, at home, I was dancing and imitating all kind of pop, funk, disco artists seen on TV, representing not so many examples, but I mean, funk and disco was really what I loved the most. Like to interpret this dance. And of course, like teenager time, you evolve in the clubbing scene. So I was also dancing a lot in clubs as dance performer, to not say go-go dancer, because go-go dancer has a pejorative, as a negative, it's a negative connotation. But no, I was performing in hip-hop club as a hip-hop dancer and not like a go-go girly sexy bitch. No. No. So I did a lot of go-go dancing, and that was actually my training platform. I didn't care about the people I was performing, but I was like, actually interpreting some, like the dance, the music. I wasn't always interpreting the music. Anyway, so I did go-go dancing in hip-hop party, in pop clubs every week, and I did go-go dancing in house, a lot in house party. Like we had a underground, pretty famous and really, really good house music party in Paris called the French mistake we do with G and J. That was TGV, also G for German, yeah? So like, yeah, TGV. So TGV in English. So yeah, it was a really, really famous house party, a lot for gay community and a lot of house dancers. Also not a lot because actually we didn't have so much house dancers, but most of the hype dancers became house dancers from Paris, yeah. So yeah, so I actually evolved in that clubbing scene many, many years, and just to say that I embrace different dance style, different dance music. I still do house dance. I love whacking. Hip hop is my base. I do dancehall. I teach dancehall, Afro house. So I actually, by teaching, I also have to do homeworks and even my homeworks. And even if I'm a teacher, I'm still a student. I would be a student till I die. Anyway, so this is the point. As we need to evolve and need to grow. So my point is that I always challenge myself when I teach, because as Hakim said, for me it's quasi the same when it comes to teaching or dancing. I use I don't use the words. I use the body language. I don't use the letters language. So the point is that I'm gonna be able to talk with my body and explain you things with my body, give the influence of it and give you the evolution of different dance styles, but I suck really with names and the dates of here, it never really brought me to evolve. It's like I take the information, but when I teach, I really try, I do homework, and actually I think it's really interesting. Now, with the workshop for tomorrow, I actually challenge myself because I want to introduce the basics to the Afro House freestyle. Why freestyle? Afro House is also as well pretty, comment on dit ça?
Polyrhythmic, definitely.
Yeah, but it has different meanings. For me, if you ask me Afro House, I'm like, okay, Afro House from South African, from Angola, from the States, which Afro House, yeah? And this is the big confusion, so I had to do homework because I'm like, okay, they say Afro. And so as a DJ, you also need to write the names, okay, Afro House, you need to separate things and give etiquette, like the society always give etiquette to things. So I say, okay. And then I heard about the Afro Tech. So I would just say, okay, Afro House from Africa is Afro Tech, and then Afro House, I keep it for the States. But it's completely different. So tomorrow I want to break this down to present the Afro House that was actually, you have the Afro House music made in South Africa, and you have the Afro House dance that emerged in Angola. And parallel to that, you have the Afro House, similar, that made by South Africans, similar to the Afro House state, kind of, because of course you have American label that also produce Afro House music. But like, for example, when I say, okay, I teach Afro House, usually because I learn more I learn more the house dance from the States. So I actually say I house dance on Afro House music. Yeah, and then also in this Afro House, it's so varied. So you have so many different styles. But yeah, tomorrow in the workshop, I'm definitely gonna try to give you my explanation with my body language, and with some cultural and historical meaning.
Thank you very much, DBD. Okay, we close this round now. We are running out of time, and I would like to introduce you to the next round. So thank you so much for being here and telling us about it.
Thank you, Nadja.
And now I want to introduce you to an author, writer, associate professor of sociology, Silvia Rief. She's very much in the back. Come to the front, Silvia. Thanks for coming. Hello. Hi. And I would also like to ask Oscar Romp to come on stage. Oscar, take a seat here, please. Thank you. You're welcome. Silvia Rief has written a book on club cultures with the title Boundaries, Identities, and Otherness. And we want to break it down. I decided to just a few questions, because I suppose that not many people did read the book or know the book, but I think it's such an interesting book at the time that you published it in 2011. 2009 you started, yeah. And it's also, there are themes and in it that really tell a lot about the bad and the good things about club cultures, and about the bad and the good things that happen in these spaces. And that's why I'm really happy that you're here. And yeah, my first question is just, what was your motivation to write this book on club cultures? And when and why did you start the research for it?
Okay. Is it on? Yeah?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this very interesting conference. My motivation to write this book or start with this research really was quite pragmatic, I must admit. I was a student back then. It was towards the end of the 1990s, and I had just completed my studies here in Vienna. And for some reason, I got to visit London. And I was just intoxicated with London at the time in my youthful enthusiasm. And I decided I would want to live there, and I want to experience the whole city. And I had to find a way to make it work. And I'm probably a bit of an outlier here, because I'm not a dancer or a musician or a DJ or anything else. I started out with dancing as well in Vienna, but I ended up as a sociologist, and I don't know whether that was a good idea. So what I did, I had studied contemporary dance, or taken contemporary dance lessons here in Vienna, and I wanted to study at the Laban Center for Movement and Dance in London. But the only way I could make it work was by doing some kind of research for my PhD, and that's how I got there. And so it was also through my interest in dance that I became involved in club cultures in London, but I didn't actually know anything about it over there.
What people did you meet when you researched on the book?
Well, I met a lot of people over the years, because I mean, the book was a sort of outcome of the PhD research, but there was a first wave of research that I did towards the end of the 1990s and the early 2000s. And later on, a couple of years later, I returned to London and also to Istanbul, and I did a sort of follow-up research. So it kind of preoccupied me for about 10 years. So who did I meet? I mean, I met a whole lot of people. I mainly, well,
DJs.
Yeah, I must say I looked more into the audience side of it and less into the producers. I mean, yes, I didn't interview too many DJs or DJs or musicians, I mostly spoke to promoters and also to people who would go to the clubs. So that was my focus.
You have a chapter in your book which is called Between Style and Desire. Can you tell us what you researched in this chapter, or what was the reason for the title? Even?
Yeah, that's a complicated story. I'm not sure whether I can put it in simple words. I was quite interested in the aspect of sexuality on the clubbing scene, and the way that I mean, it was so interesting in London because of, you know, so many different clubs, and they all had various aspects or addressed various aspects of sexuality and the gay scene and lesbian scenes and queer scenes and straight clubs opening up to various audiences. So it was really quite interesting. And what I also noticed, I also studied clubbing magazines and how, I mean, the whole clubbing scene in London, it was, of course, it was very heterogeneous, and some of it was very commercialized. And with the commercialization, I think there was also a sort of trend to present clubbing as a sort of sexual spectacle of, you know, a place or a scene where you could explore your sexual desires and interests and whatsoever, and be not confined to the normal heteronormative ideas about sexuality and so on. So it was also used as a sort of a sign value for clubbing. It's about sexualization and sexual role play and so on. And what I found interesting was that you know, there were some straight or gay clubs which kind of opened up to mixed audiences, but this was always a bit difficult. I mean, I don't know if anyone here knows the club Heaven. It's a very famous club in London, and they had they had very different nights, a gay night, a night for a gay male crowd, and various mixed nights and so on, and it was really quite interesting.
Sorry to interrupt you. We had a club here in Vienna, which is back in the days, Heaven at U4. So maybe they refer to this one, I guess.
Yeah.
A gay club night, basically, in Vienna here.
And so it was also a place for straight people to go there and to be together with gay people, and that is not always easy because there is the door policies and and people. I spoke to young women who were trying to get in there, but they were turned away because they looked too straight, and so they were trying to perform gay, and you got all this kind of rituals at the door and inside the club, and that's why I called it Between Style and Desire, because there was this performative element as well, and this kind of maybe possibility to identify with other people and other forms of life and other sexualities, and it's an interesting thing, the way it's about exploring your sexuality, but also a bit about performing and trying out, and so and that was quite interesting in terms of how people interacted, and inside the
I
clubs.
find it very interesting because when I started in the 90s, I was also writing about underground dance, and this element of the carnival, which is way back a very old-rooted tradition in almost all cultures, you know. In the carnival, you dress yourself as you like, you don't follow the rules, you go crazy, you know, but only during the carnival, you know. So you have the very famous Brazilian carnival, which I find is, of course, in a way very commercialized, you know, but it's still the roots has very much to do with what happens in a club. And that leads me to the second part of your book, identities, because I think this is a very interesting term, because I think even for a sociologist to use it, you know, for club cultures, because you come as you are, or you are not part of it. So it's about who are you in a space, you know, or who are you allowed to be, and the role, the mask, what you wear, you know, in what you slip in, gives you the freedom to try out I can be someone else. It's not that what my parents told me. It's not the body rules that are, that you get from your parents or from the official side. So I think this is a very interesting topic. So what's your definition, for identities in your book?
I don't know if I even used a definition for identity in my book, but I spoke about identity projects. And that was more about the way that people narrated their experiences about clubbing. But I have to add a small thing about the anecdote that I told you before. The girls who were turned away from heaven, they were dressed up as nurses, and that's why they were told that they looked too straight. They kind of picked the wrong costume for heaven. So yeah. The carnivalesque, I certainly noticed that too. More in the magazines, perhaps, but also, of course, in the clubs themselves and how people dress up and the kind of costumes they use and so on. And identities, well, I said identity project. It was quite interesting because I met many people, or not many, but several, who... for whom the clubs were important spaces for developing their skills, or various creative skills, like dancers, for example, or someone who was designing spatial, whatever, surroundings for the club, and later on went into design studies. So there was a sort of moment of professionalization. You didn't only go there to consume the club, but to start getting involved in various aspects of production. And these people, there's also some sense that discourse on clubbing at the time, I mean, this was 20 years ago, 15 years ago, was still a bit ambivalent. On the one hand, it was this great thing in London, but for middle-class people and students with a white background, it was also a bit, well, I'm involved in that sphere, but I have to get finished with my studies, or it's always a bit of a difficult story if they get involved too much, also in the drug thing, and so they have to present some kind of, these people that I interviewed, they presented some narratives about how they mastered the difficult experiences on the scenes, and that's what I meant to say with identity project. But it's also, I mean, as I told you about heaven and other spaces, a lot of negotiation about who you are and how you are seen by others. I didn't expect that, actually. I always had the idea that, I mean, there's so large crowds and you just mingle in and you're probably there with your friends. And you're not really getting noticed about so much whether you are this or that or the other, but there was still some negotiation about whether you belonged there or not, whether you wear the right outfit or not. So that was kind of surprising. And that's also why the book is called Boundaries, Identities and Otherness.
Yeah, and can you, my last question, what is otherness? Why did you use this expression?
Because I think there is this sense of kind of trying to distance yourself from everyday life and from your routines, which are sometimes maybe not so exciting, like work or studying. And clubs certainly have some kind of, I mean, we heard people tell us before about this kind of spiritual, almost kind of experiences of the club is like a church. It's a kind of different order of reality, perhaps, a play reality, and it's also presented as that sometimes in media discourse. You know, there's this sense of transgressiveness and the carnival or the carnivalesque dimension about it. even though I wouldn't think that these everyday structures kind of disappear in a club. It's a sort of, it's ambivalent. It's both, it's people trying to create some a kind of different space for themselves, and still you have all this very mundane structures, like you have to queue, you have to get in there, you have to travel there on the tube and subway. You're confronted with the not so nice things in the city, like poor people living on the streets, and then at the same time, yeah, you enter the club, and it's a kind of different world, but it's also difficult to forget about other stuff. So
there are always hierarchies that have to be negotiated. If you're a puncher, you know, or whoever you are, if you're trying to get in on the scene, you've got to deal with these hierarchies. You know, I never really liked hierarchies, but they're a fact of life. You've got to find your way among it.
Especially in the heteronormative structures that we live in. But here we have a very diverse and space and a space of freedom, you know, so that's why we can analyze it very well. I think so. So Oscar, thank you very much for answering my stupid questions.
They weren't stupid at all.
No. I'm just joking. So I would like to introduce Oscar Romp. He's Oscar, he's a painter.
Hello.
He's a unique original, I think, in the club scene because he's an academic trained
drawer, artist, printmaker.
And you are the only one that I've
dishwasher.
found. Yeah. The only one I found that is really portraying life in the clubs and the energy that are in a club, you know, and you do it with basically with your with charcoal. You work with tell us a little bit about it, and we go through some works of Oscar. Let me just we start with red. Tell us about this work, for instance.
Yeah, this I call the Red Man. So my work begins and ends in the club. My philosophy to do with making culture is I don't try to involve myself in an art historical brain blah blah. I have no dealings with the art, you know, what they call the art world. I respond to the world that I live in and that I engage with, and I've had a lifelong love of music and dancing, so it's only logical that my artwork reflects that. And it's about being a participant. I'm not a voyeur. I am an observer, but I'm also a participator. And as life goes on, you know, I'm old now, and most of the guys at the beginning who were speaking about the history are also old, and this, we have a heritage here, right? We have a heritage. This is a thing. But what I want to say to anyone that's not old and not young, you know, you don't be intimidated. The groove bus is there. You can get on it at any point, and you've got every right to be on it as any old bastard who's done loads of stuff, yeah? Like this young lady here, she feels intimidated. Don't feel intimidated, man. Just get in there. Get in that circle. Get in the circle. That's what life's about, you know. You don't stick out in the suburbs at the edge of the club. If you love the music and you feel it, you go there, you get in the middle, and you create and you improvise. Technique's important, but how do you learn technique? By doing. And it's the same with painting. I wasn't born good at painting. I'm not really good at anything. I'm clumsy as hell. But I have focus. I'm able to focus, and I just stick to a thing, and in time you get good. But
Oscar, you are also.
Yeah, sorry.
You also dance and you also DJ. So you have a lot of spaces, you know. In
I have a
club
lot
culture.
of spaces, and I'm able to do this because of environment. I was lucky because I grew up in a family where creativity is important. My mum and dad are both painters. I'm not a rebel in that way. I didn't rebel against my parents. I was following the family trade, man. You know. But it's like I was taking it to a new context by making art that is about movement, that is about being in the moment, that's about not only depicting the dance, but the feeling of being in the dance and feeling the music. Let me tell you something. I've been to a lot of dance classes, but I never stayed more than a couple of lessons because I'm the worst student in the whole damn class. Right? One of my best mates, Paul Sado, he's a friend from the Northern Soul scene years back, but he got into capoeira because it was a good way for him to get out of drugs and dodgy lifestyles. So he got involved in, you know, Brazilian martial art, capoeira, and he became a master at this. And he used to get me involved in stuff because he used to like me to come and draw the capoeiristas and get involved a little bit, but not too much. And he'd do workshops like you'll be doing tomorrow. And I would go along to the workshop. I'd be at the front. Everything he did, I'd do wrong. And I can't count. I've got no maths. I've got no mathematical ability. And the way they teach dance usually in classes, it's all about mathematics and counting. Fuck that, man. I can't do that. He said, Oscar, get to the back, always. If I was in his class, get to the back. And it was the same. I tried salsa, the same. Get to the back. I tried dancing with a girl in salsa. You can't dance. Don't do that. You can't do that. You can't. It's all rules, man. But if I dance with a girl who's not trained, it goes fine. How do I make that out? Why does that work? You know? Yeah, exactly. And you still lead, but they haven't got preconceptions of, you're dancing, you should be on the one, but you're on the two. I think, what the fuck? What's that all about? Yeah, but let's go on.
Can you tell us about this picture?
Yeah, the picture.
I find it's a very striking picture of Oscar, and just tell us the year and which club and how did you paint it?
This was made in 2007. The year I came to Vienna first. I grew up in London. I was a student in the north of England, which is how I got involved in Northern Soul. But I got into the UK jazz dance scene when I came back to London after that, actually. And this is an event that still goes on now. It's called Southport Weekender.
What is a weekender?
A weekender is an event, music and dance event that goes on a whole weekend. And this has been a tradition in British dance culture since late 70s that clubs and music scenes will book a sort of cheap holiday chalet resort on the coast, out of season, you know, with the wind blowing and the rain coming down. You go and you spend a weekend at the seaside, but you don't go in the sea, you don't go outside, you just go in the club rooms and you're dancing the whole damn weekend. You don't have to worry about the night bus, how you're going to get home, none of that. It's like heaven. You just come out of the club, you crash, you get up, you eat a big breakfast, and then you go out dancing again. So that's what a weekender is. And Southport had its roots in jazz dance. So it began as jazz dance, soul music in the early 80s. But as the music changed, the promoter always wanted to stay on top of what was happening now and new. So it was like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you come to dance music and dance music scene, there's a tendency for white Europeans to be really interested in history and to look backwards. But for young black people in any urban scene, they don't want to dwell too much on the past. It's like, what's happening now? And they think whatever's happening now, they think is new. They can't see the history because they're young. So the promoter here was very clever about always staying on top and booking the things that was happening now in America, from America, and also in England, and from wherever it was going off. He booked these people. So the festival progressed over the years. It's still going now. So from the 80s till now. And just my luck, it moved to where I live 2 years ago. So now I can do a whole big exhibition because it's just on my doorstep. So we had this festival in March, and I did a big exhibition there. Anyway, I'm going on. This picture, it's from a live drawing. So I work live in the club. I either work from an easel, which I bring along, or I tape the paper to the floor, and I draw charcoal, pastel, because it's fluid, it's immediate. I can work fast. I don't get it right the first time. Just like dance, you know. I'm clumsy. The first marks are shit. I think, fucking hell, man. And I get a rag and I just rub it off because it's just black dust. Charcoal is burnt wood, it's black dust. You just rub it off and you can start again. You just keep going and you say, wait, that's got something. That's like the move he just did there. Wait, you do it again in a minute. Yeah, that. Oh, no, the foot's, no, that don't look right. Let's try that. No, I still don't. Right, chuck that one. Let's try, get that girl with that big hair there. You got that in there. Blah, blah, blah. And it goes on like that. Now, this one here, I didn't do that in the club. I did that specially for an exhibition. But the background figures are all lifted from the live drawing that I did in the club. The red man came later. The red man is actually an image of me dancing. It's the only self-portrait you're going to see in this slideshow. That is my self-portrait. I'm the red man there. And that came from, they have a lunchtime jazz dance at Southport, or they did then, where everybody gets up, have their breakfast, and they go to the jazz room at 12 o'clock, and it's a big circle for about 3 hours. And I took some snaps of my friends dancing, and then I handed it over. Take some of me, will you? And my friend Linford took this snap of me, with me in this mid-move, strange sort of diagonal hand move. I've got no sense of balance. I can't stand on my hands. I've got no balance. I get balance through momentum, so I'm moving the whole time when I dance. There's no still moment. Yeah? So through movement, I get momentum. The movement stops, I fall down. So anyway, so that image came from that photo. So I just traced the outline and I overlaid it on top of the live drawing. So that's how that happened. I think we should move on to another image now because we've got quite a few.
I want to get into, we just choose one more because we are way
all right, let's get a live
time. No, I would like to show The Ghost in the Groove because I love the title so much. It's a portrait of Carrie Chandler playing in a club.
This was also a Southport image. Actually, this wasn't my idea. A friend of mine, Ben Brophy, who tries to promote what I do in the clubs a little bit, he said, what you want to do is don't just draw the dancers. You want to draw some of the famous DJs, and then maybe they'll buy the picture, maybe they'll get famous, and maybe blah, 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 maybe, probably, maybe, never, kind of blah, blah. Anyway, so I said, yeah, all right, I'll do some. So I did, we asked Kerry Chandler and Giles Peterson to send me a snap of them DJing. And so, but I'm thinking, how can I make that into something more than just a poor copy of a photo? And so, like I said, it's not just about what you see, it's about what you feel, and it's the way the tone is manipulated and the choice of colours. It's about the feeling of being in that groove and the undergroundness. It's not an accident of choosing the blue and keeping it monochrome in this case. Also, you see in the background there, that bit is all invented. So from the DJ booth, it's lifted more or less from a photo, but all the crowd and that bit, ghostly bit going off into the white space up there is invented. Yeah, but show them a live drawing.
Yes. Where is it? The hi-hat?
Yeah, hi-hat one is good, yeah. Now that's the finished painting. Yeah, good that you showed them that, but now you're going to go back. That was a commissioned painting that came, it's mural size, it was for an arts trust. I made the painting for an arts trust in London who commissioned me to do a painting about street dance. The funny thing about street dance is it doesn't really ever happen on the street, or I haven't ever known it to happen in the street. It happens in clubs. That's my experience, but probably different in New York. But yeah, I was commissioned to do street dance, and I thought, but I don't really know about what people think about street. When people think of street dance, they think of MTV and the girl groups, you know, doing that clever stuff all in a row and stuff. But or they think of hip hop. And people look at this and they probably think of hip hop too, but it's actually from a UK jazz dance club where the music is very along the same lines that our French guys were describing, what they call in Paris jazz rock. We would call it jazz fusion or jazz dance. And as well as the 70s thing, it goes right back. It goes back to, we also play the bebop from the 50s and 60s. The genre doesn't matter. It's what's going on creatively in the music. It doesn't matter when it was recorded. It could be 50s. It could be now. It's about the values of the music that's being played, and it has, like people have mentioned before, it's got breaks in it that give dancers an opportunity to express above and beyond the technical. It has space for creativity. Anyway, so that we call it jazz dance, and this is a jazz dance club called the Hi-Hat that moved around to different venues by a DJ called Snowboy. And he's DJing in the corner there. His roots were actually in rockabilly, but somehow he stumbled upon Latin music and jazz dance, and never looked back. He has his own band actually called Snowboy in the Latin section.
Yeah, Snowboy is a percussionist.
Yeah.
A tall white guy, and I invited Snowboy and some of the jazz dancers in 1996 to Vienna. That was a book, just to note.
Yeah.
That. So Oscar, let's
Yeah,
do
so
the last one.
Find the drawing, because then they'll understand what I'm on about.
Which one is it? I can't see it.
Do it in the club. Do you do it actually on the dance floor?
Yeah, right, yeah. As close to this, if there's a circle, I want to be as close to that as possible. Yeah. And the other thing is, right, the other thing, you do anything creative, you've always got these voices in your head saying, man, what are you doing this for? This is shit. You can't do this, you're an imposter. Stop it, man. Fuck, you can't do this, man. You got no talent. Look, get out the limelight, man. And you got. I went to art school, and the people. I went to Royal College of Art in London, and I did an MA there. And the staff were horrible. They're just so negative. Every time we had a tutorial, it was like fucking Sorry, excuse my French. It was like the KGB. It was like interrogation, by the KGB. You were in this white room, and they'd look through your work, and they just totally destroy the work psychologically and try to bust you psychologically. And what it seemed to be about was actually, they say, well, we're just trying to toughen you up for the real world, man. But this is bullshit. They don't want the competition. They don't want anyone. They don't want to share the cake. So anyway.
Let's just.
That's one. But
I don't have the one here.
Yeah, you have. You got it. Go on, scroll.
No.
Show them the one. Show them the one of me drawing the.
But it's not there, Oscar. So we have to finish anyway now. We have. Yeah.
I will show them that one then. Just whatever you got there. Yeah, that one. Yes. This is finally. This is the one. Right. So this is the live drawing done in the club. Right. You can see round the edge. There's a line round the edge where there's no drawing. That was masking tape. So you stick it to the floor with masking tape. Yeah. And that was done in 1998. Yeah, at the Hi-Hat when it was at the Jazz Cafe. Before that, it was at the Blue Note, Hoxton Square. Which was a sort of iconic club in the sort of 90s, basically. Yeah. Various. Usually, they love it because it's some attention and it's something new going on, and it contributes to the atmosphere. The reason I was going on about them negative voices is that I found that I could block them out, actually, in a club situation because there's a time constraint. The club's only on for a few hours. You've got no time to listen to no bullshit inside your or outside your brain. Or, you know, so you think, right, I've got to get it down. I've got 3 hours. You critics, go fuck off. Sorry, I've got to do this work. And you go and do that, right? And the other thing is, it's like the warrior feeling. You go in the circle, you dance. It takes courage. It takes... because you're going in there with people that are really good. And at the beginning, you're not good and you get dissed. People even kick you and stuff because they think you haven't got a right to be there. You know? And some, like brothers in jazz, they were murderous. They were great dancers, but they were also, they were bully boys. They didn't like you, or if you got on their patch, they'd come and bash you up in the bogs. Or they try to, or they trip you up. And they say, I remember one of them, he said, what did he say to me? He goes, yeah, you come near again, you're going to know about it. You come into my space again, you're going to know about it. Yeah, bully boys, man.
Okay, thank you so much, Oscar. Thank you. Thank you for your lively performance. Okay. I would like to introduce you now with a film to the Viennese underground. And I produced this documentary last year. And I call it the title Dance Lives Vienna. And it portrays, basically, brings together my old good friends from New York City. With, you know, these are, the footage in there is from 1995. And combines it with interviews with dancers from now. Is Natalia here? Natalia, are you here? Okay, this is one dancer from your scene that is in there. And also, yeah, I want to make a contribution or tribute to Gregor. Gregor Kramer is one of the is one of your sons, Archie. Yes, he's a beautiful dancer. He has he puts a lot of energy into the Vogue and whacking community, and you will see in the documentary. It's short, it's 14 minutes, so I hope you will like it. Where is it? There we are.
Stipendium bekommen für New York und ich habe dann 1994 habe ich das erste Mal auf der New York Public Library, wo ich recherchiert habe für meine Arbeit, habe ich die Sally Sommer kennengelernt.
Project Check Your Body at the Door is to document some of the extraordinary
Aber ich kriege diese Fullscreen nicht rein, wissen Sie? Also die volle Screen, das ist eigenartig.
in New York City. I'm also a dance historian, and it has been very clear that the club dancing is the dancing, the foundation from which all other dancing springs. In other words, dance comes from the street, from the clubs, and then works up to the stage.
And a center, I would say she's a center of the young Viennese underground. She's a hell of a lot of a multifunctionalist because she's a dancer, a great dancer. She is a promoter. She teaches, and she never stops to provide really cool hot parties in Vienna. Miss Tina Rauter from a party called Jack. Tina, come here. And then I want to introduce a female DJ. I really say it by purpose because there's not many female DJs in Vienna in that quality. This is her DJ name is Flo Real, and I want to introduce you to Florence J. Leigh. Florence, come on here. Okay, so I would like to start with you, Tina. You just talk into it. I think it's on. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, yes, you're there. Tina, how is it? I'm really interested in that. In this now, in the club scene now in Vienna, how is it to be a female promoter and to deal with it and to, you know, how do you stand your ground here?
I think, first of all, it's very important that I don't see myself as a promoter. I see myself as a more creative director, maybe. So I'm not thinking of like, I want to do a party and it's all about a party. It's more about community building and actually also be in a very creative process when it comes to music culture. So in Vienna you have a lot of parties, but I don't know if you can call that music culture because there is not a lot going on actually at the party. And so far my experience, because TJ and me, we do a party called Jack together, is that I basically did not have a lot of contact to the clubs. It was more that he had the contact to the clubs because he is the DJ and he's more centered in the music culture, and I basically have more contact to the dance community. And so far my experience with club owners was okay, but what I experience is a lot of unawareness in a lot of aspects. If it comes, it doesn't matter if it comes to music culture, who they invite, who plays, and also to how they treat, how they provide spaces. So, and even if they think they are aware, they are not.
I think, don't you think that in Vienna, I mean, it is a fact that there's most of the club owners or the people that run a club are men in Vienna? I can't think of a woman that is running a club here. So, and the other parties, we talked about that, Tina, that we have still, back in the days when I started too, you have this bar culture. So people come to the club, they stand with a glass and they drink. The music is not so in the center, you know, trying to connect, of course, you know, with the girls and everything. But it's more, so, but you are representing a really, a very lively dance culture, you know. So you bring people in that are really dancing to the music that you provide. TJ, music, what do you think about yourself?
Kann ich nur kurz noch was, can I just say something? It's not that I present something or TJ presents something or Flo. There's a whole community behind that. And the only reason why this can work, how it works, is because it's community work. So you have to really think of that you can never do certain things alone. And also you have to get to know people because it's not my culture. And without TJ, it would be never possible to do it. And also with people who represent actually club music, underground dance music. And this is something like very, very important to say, that these things can only be provided within a strong community.
Jerome, how did you create or network in this community? Thank you, Tina. In this community, coming from New York City, you know, you're Harlem-born, and you here for how long you have been here? When did you start in Vienna? You know, living here and networking and being a DJ.
I started living here in 2004. I just came to visit a friend from Brooklyn. I was DJing in Italy, and before I came, I told him, we were using Skype at the time. I was living in San Francisco, and I told him, yo, I'm gonna be in Europe. I can come visit you, you know, when I come through. And he was like, yo, you gotta come. Nobody ever comes to visit me here. So I did. So I was in Capri, and I went to Naples and called him, and I said, yo, I'm gonna come through. And he was like, yo, come, you can stay as long as you want. Doors open. So I came, and my friend is a moderator on ORF, FM4. And I was playing lots of shows with him. So we were doing radio shows and doing club events and traveling around all of Austria.
So you had the right friend here.
I had
to step in, because I was wondering how did you work that out? You know, to be.
That was my interest to Austria. That was why I came, and yeah. It's why I feel like I had a real friend here. So that's what really kept me here.
Yeah. And how did you? How was the connection with the club when you started here with the club owners, and how was the scene? Tell us, like 15 years ago.
When I came here, I didn't have any connection to any owners of anything. I was just going out. Everybody was the same to me. I mean, you could be an owner, you could be a dancer. Everybody was the same, and I treated everyone the same. I always treat everyone the same. And
it has something to do with you and your personality.
I mean, this is just who I am, you know. And over time, I didn't really speak about what I did unless people asked me, you know. And that became kind of a thing, because I would be around people who were doing events or they were DJs, but I never really said what I did unless I was asked. And that went on for about 2 years in Vienna. So some people knew I was DJing, but their friends knew I was DJing, but they didn't know I was DJing. So over time, people got to know who I was, and I started getting invitations to play in different places. And I'm still here doing that.
And you do a very diverse variety. So we are at this term diverse. You know, diversity is the theme also from today that we are here.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, this is actually, I was speaking with Strafe about this yesterday, actually, because my roots in music, I mean, I was, when I was really, really young, listening to the radio, like that was my source of that was what I needed, the radio, yeah? And that went on until I was old enough to actually go to a club. So when Strafe came out with his hit, you know, I was 12 years old. But we had... And yes, so you had New York Stars on BLS. It's a radio station in New York, playing all sorts of music. There was no real genre. Yeah, you had people playing music, and this was the music that was being made. It wasn't being promoted. It was the music that was being made, hey, my boy works at the radio, he's playing my music on the radio, and that catches on, and then the record company come, and then they start their shenanigans, and you have to figure out, how you're gonna roll with that,
You were more of a listener as a child, and then did you ever work the dance floor yourself?
You have to be a listener. I mean, you're the first listener, yeah. But I'm also a musician. I'm a drummer also, and this is where I started my my journey into music.
So percussion and drums. You play the drums.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Florence, we talk about music today, and I know that you are lucky because you had a father that inspired you with his records. And tell us about it. How did you step in, into DJing and yeah?
My father, can you hear me? Yes. My father used to DJ when I was little, and yeah, so there was the vinyl room, the man cave, with his records that I was not allowed to touch. Yeah, as a child, it was totally off limits for me. That has changed a little bit. Now he's kind of encouraged me to come and dig and kind of take some of those and use them, which I appreciate because they're mostly in mint condition because I was not allowed to touch them as a child. Yeah, so that was my first inspiration, but also like TJ said, the radio. As I got older, my sister influenced me a lot, but the radio, listening to the radio, recording cassettes, and yeah, way before I was able to set foot into any club. But I set foot into clubs at a young age too. And the film made me a little sentimental because it showed the old Volksgarten that we loved so much. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful
I was there
space.
as a young girl.
Now. Yeah, that's true. And how did you? How was the possibility for you to step in? As a female. Into the DJing here in Vienna?
I was lucky because I was at the right place at the right time, I guess. I had, my friendship circle was comprised of a lot of artists and DJs. But, well, my first introduction to the club scene was going out and dancing. And eventually it turned into me requesting songs and, becoming more involved. And at some point I just got tired of always being the person that, kind of bothers the DJ to play whatever song. So I just, it was not like a plan, I'm gonna start DJing and become whatever. I just felt like, okay, if I play music, I don't have to request. I'm just gonna do and play what I feel like, and I that's still my approach. I like sharing the music that I personally like.
But you love to move and dance to the music.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That
I was
was
a dancer
your initial as a dancer.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, yeah. So how? You tell me how do you feel with a party called Jack, because you were part of the crew of the platform of the of what Tina and TJ founded. How is it for you to create as a DJ to create a good party vibe? Can you give us just a little insight? How do you do it? How do you get it? How do you start? And these things would be interesting to know.
Please repeat the question, sorry. How do I
How do you create, when you start your set, what have you got in mind? Have you already got certain tracks in your mind, a certain style of music, or do you just initially, just go without a plan, without anything into it, and then play what people react to?
It's a mix of both, I guess. I never plan out my set from A to Z. That I did that way in the past when I literally wrote down the set list and how I would have to I don't do that anymore.
That was the start.
It never really worked out for me. That's not a good approach, at least not for me. It depends. If I go to the record store or I download some new tracks or some old tracks, and I want to play them out, like I want to hear them and share them, then I have an idea of, okay, at some point in the night I would like to play this track, but usually I get on, like last night, for example, I played after Rumi, and I just continue on from what has happened before me. Obviously, if you start, you just create your own, you open up the space and you set the tone, but it's freestyle for the most part for me. And it also depends obviously on the time and space, right? Because I'm also, I play a variety of music. A different environment calls for different sound, a different style, different tempos, different feel. But I like to be in relationship with the crowd, with the atmosphere around me, and obviously how I feel at the time. That translates.
I'm very interested in, because you have here this community that Tina and TJ, created somehow. People that love and share the dance floor and the music. And how do you feel playing somewhere else, being not in this community? In this,
you mean
like
outside
a party
of
called
town?
Jack, yeah.
Outside of Vienna?
Yeah, outside of Vienna. How is it then? Because I would be interested in that.
It depends. Usually very exciting. Like I still get very excited. I even get excited playing at a party called Jack, where I know most people. But yeah, playing in a new space, a new town, in front of people who may or may not know me or know what I do. I guess it always depends on the circumstances. I can't really.
And
I can give an example. For example, last month I was booked to play an in-store at a record store. It's Record Store Day. I played at the BBE store in London. Small space. The crowd are music hits, not someone that just randomly stumbled in the club and got drunk and ended up on the dance floor. All these people came explicitly to that place to see me or hear me and get down. So I loved the way it turned out and the way I was received. I was very nervous, but the response and the reception was phenomenal. That's all I can say. So,
nice.
But then there are nights where people may expect something different and may not be as open-minded, and then, yeah, you're just lucky you got through it and go home. Lesson. I mean, it's all an experience. At the end of the day, it can't always be fantastic, but
of course, yeah,
that's part of. I guess that's part of any occupation or anything you might want to do.
Yeah.
I don't expect it to always be fabulous and everybody just cheering me on. Like, there's better days, and that's a good day.
Well, I guess it's like on stage, when you do live music, it's in the moment, so you're creating in the moment. And of course you have to, you get the energy. And if it's a bad energy or it's a boring energy, but you as a DJ, you have to kind of deal with it and react to it, So I found the soulfulness of how you play, that is really remarkable.
Thank you.
And we will hear you tonight. Can't wait. And Jerome, you will play too. You have a plan?
It's always improv.
Okay. Thank you so much for your attention. We are over time, but we will start in 1 hour, so it will be later than we tried to be, but I think we are good with half an hour overdue. And thank you so much. So we have a break now, and in 1 hour we start with live music, live dance acts, yes, with everyone involved at this conference. Thank you. Thank you for attention.